morning, everyone. Welcome to the Teen Collaborative State Summer Reading Workshop. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Derek Ivey, and I am the Youth Services Coordinator at the Suffolk Cooperative Library System. My colleagues from 12 other New York library systems, aka my color crew, and I, went to the drawing board to create today's workshop. And what we have discovered is you all are artists in your own right. Every day you create new, fun, educational, crafty, colorful experiences for your patrons. Your tools are books, 3D printers, video games, trowels, perler beads, glue, fleece, and most importantly, your imagination. Your brilliant minds create everything your young patrons could hope for and more. This year's summer reading program, Color Your World, will have your patrons creating their own imaginative galleries. Today, library staff members from across the state have gathered their supplies and are ready to share their creations from some of their rainbow-tastic, yes, that is a word I've just created, teen library programs. From fashion sustainability to teen bake-offs, artist trivia bingo to teen after-hours color wars, there is a whole slew of amazing programming ideas that will be presented to let your patrons know that they can create the most masterful pieces of art at their libraries. Now, as we all know, there is a such thing as artistic license. Take these excellent examples of aesthetic achievements as inspiration. If you were to recreate one of these programs at your library, it may not look exactly the same, and that's okay. Feel inspired by these examples. Take a piece from one and a color from another and create your own collage. Don't be afraid to whip up something new with an ingredient from a program recipe that was shown today. To help, we've asked our presenters to provide tips to scale these programs based on library size and different budgets. So before getting to the good stuff, I do have some housekeeping to go through. Please take this time right now to change your Zoom name to the name you used to register for today's program for easy attendance taking. That's first and last name, please. The easiest way to do this is to click on the 3 dots on your small Zoom box and click Rename. Our presenters today will have a 10-minute block for their presentation. We also have time scheduled after each presentation for a Q&A from attendees. As someone is presenting, feel free to drop your question into the chat, but do start it with the letter Q so we know to come back to it. For our presenters, when you would like to advance the slide, just say next slide. For timing purposes, please pay attention to our amazing color crew member, Haley, who will have a 5, 3, and 1 minute warning sign. Look at that. Oh, it's gorgeous. They're gorgeous. Thank you, Haley. As a note, we will have breaks throughout our time together. The entire event is being recorded, and the videos will be shared at a later date. Now, grab your caboodle filled with crafty goodness, and let's get ready to make some masterpieces, because it's time to hear from our incredible colleagues. Up first, we have Eileen Kelly from Long Beach Public Library, who will be presenting their Paint and Pass for Teens program. So we'll share our screen, and Eileen can get started.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is a little thing I call Paint and Pass. Originally, the idea came up during I was covering our drawing club, which is very free form, relaxed. We just kind of hang out. And the group of kids kept asking me, well, what are we drawing? And I did not have an answer for them. So we came up with this little game, and then it grew and grew into what I'm presenting here. Next slide, please. So what's the big idea? You're working with timed prompts, and your teens are using collaborative art to make hilarious art pieces. They turn out to be really hysterical because you're all using the same prompts, and they're all supposed to be exactly the same, but they end up being wildly different. Next slide. So we are coloring our world with collaboration by working together. It allows the kids to interact with one another, even if they didn't come as a group, which, as we all know, is kind of an imperative for teens. The interaction in the room outside of their own specific friendship group is usually not that heavy, but with something like this, it sort of forces them to not only interact, but they end up making friends and having a good time. We're coloring our world with imagination because we all picture things completely differently in our brains, and the prompts cause that to be a sort of uniqueness that is really fun for everybody involved. And coloring our world with comedy, it ends up being really funny, and there's a lot of laughter coming out throughout the entirety of the program, but especially at the end, because when you're looking at, let's say, 20 odd of the same exact thing, and they all look completely different and pretty silly because we're working with teens, it's a really fun experience for everyone involved, including us as librarians. Next slide, please. So in order to set up for success, you will need just a few things. A lot of things are readily available, likely, because we all have art closets, but you'll want to set up stations for each artist, which would include a palette with all of the colors of the rainbow and plenty of space for mixing, which they may want a second paper plate or plastic plate or palette for that too. Wash cups and pencils in case they want to sketch something out quickly, and paint for sharing and refilling palettes on the tables as well. Everyone starts with their blank canvas. For the prompts, you can use cardboard boxes, you can use bowls, you can use any sort of thing that will hold a bunch of slips of paper, or if you wanted to, you could make sort of like a generator and do it on a smart board or television or via a laptop if you wanted to. But basically, you're going to need three because there will be descriptors and nouns in each bowl. One of the fun things that is presently happening is you can use all of this teen brain rot language and your descriptors, and that makes for a really uproariously hilarious time. You do kind of have to jingle the keys and reherd the cats every so often, because sometimes when you pull out a word and say skibbity toilet, they lose their mind, and you have to kind of refocus them, but it's a lot of fun. And you're going to need a timer because keeping it timed is what keeps it fun and also not going for ever and ever and ever. Having a whiteboard or a large easel or one of those large post-its that you can write on to display the prompts that have been selected from the bowl is also helpful, because sometimes they forget what was pulled out almost immediately. And again, if you're doing a digital iteration, you would already have those words on your TV or smart board for them to see, which is helpful. Next slide. So then it's game on time. The moderator pulls the three words to create the prompt, and then the timer is set. The 5-minute countdown allows for them to have time to create and make it their own, but not too much time, which keeps it moving and keeps it exciting. They do feel kind of rushed, but just ignore them. They'll be fine. Time is up after 5 minutes, which seems like a long time, but in the thick of it is really not. They pass their canvas to their friend on the right, and then they have 60 seconds to reset their station, meaning you can wash your brushes up really quick. You can squirt some paint if you're running low on certain colors, but you have only that small window of time to operate in, which keeps it challenging and fun. Next slide. So the important bits, what does it cost? As I said, a lot of the supplies are materials that you probably already have in-house. You could probably get something going without having to purchase. But if you had to purchase, starting from scratch, 50 pieces of a 16 by 20 canvas board on Amazon is $63. 10 packs of brushes and palettes. So that would be 24 patron setups. So if you're scheduling 24 patrons for your program, that's $40. And a display timer, this particular one was 13. So between $10 and $15, and that doesn't go anywhere. If you wanted to give them all 10 brushes and their palette for 24 people, in theory, this would cost about $70. If you did not, you could always use paper if you have thicker enough paper to accommodate some sort of paint, like a woven or a linen paper. You could use pretty much anything you want. You don't even have to have it be paint if you want to do it with drawing or crayons or tempera paint sticks, which are paint, but they act like glue sticks and they dry really quickly. That would also cut down on a lot of mess. So there are so many options that you could really do as a fun thing. You could change timing. You could make it more of a minute to win it style thing and make it a lot more challenging. There are so many different ways to do it. For washing brushes, for washing cups for brushes, I put in here. I usually buy a big sleeve of deli containers from Costco because you can wash them about 8,000 times and they never break. They never go anywhere. They're great. Next slide. There it is. So, like I said, cost for 2014s, if you're giving them all 10 brushes and the palettes and assuming that those things are being thrown in the garbage afterwards, with the addition of the sustainable items and depreciation calculations, if you will, $100 for 2014s if you're throwing away everything. So not terrible. And you could always swap out canvases for paper and take a couple of cheaper options too to reduce your costs. The timing is everything, but like I said, if you don't want to make it a long program, then you can take it down to 2 minutes or 3 minutes in between each prompt. You can make it super, super hard and do 1 or 2 minutes in between. It's completely amorphous. You can always change it and adjust it according to your needs or the size of groups that you may have as well. For this particular instance, I say 90 minutes for 24 is like a pretty good allowance. I think that may be the last slide, but go on, next slide. Yay! Thank you. That is it. You can paint, pass, draw, color. It's about the passing, it's about the collaborating, and it's about the weird art that ensues. And then it could be a bonus arts installation too. That's it.
Thank you, Eileen. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We have one here that asks, do you have to convince teens who say they are not artistic?
I just tell them it's not a judgment room. Nobody's painting is their own painting. At the end of the day, nobody's going to look at it and go, oh, that nose is crooked. It must be yours. Nobody's judging you like that. They're all weird. They're all whimsical. And you can't really point out who's artistic and who's not based on how this program is really made.
Weird and whimsical are two of my favorite adjectives, so that's perfect for me, honestly. So we have another question here. How do they decide who takes which art home?
That has never actually occurred. Again, I haven't done this loads of times, but when we did collectively look at them all, only a couple of kids actually wanted to take them home, and nobody gave any issue about which ones they wanted to take. Some of them just remained here, like in my office, displayed, and they would come in and be like, "Oh, you still have that? That's funny." But it wasn't really an issue, so
You're
I
creating your
don't
own
know.
gallery of
Yeah.
paint and pass whimsy. So the next two questions are sort of related. How many rounds do you usually do, and how many times do you pass it?
Well, that always is determined by the amount of people who show up because you have to have an even number of, in other words, the canvas needs to make it back to its original owner in order for the game to be completed. So that
Hmm.
needs to somewhat be adjusted according to if you have 12 people sign up, but only 8 kids show up, you might have to adjust that, or they might have to do 2 rounds.
And then would you, in that instance, would you adjust the amount of time that they have it? The 5 minutes? Like if there's less kids, would you ever do 5 minutes or do you just keep it at that time?
I would just keep the time of the length of the program same and give them an extra round maybe. And we just keep adding to it because that makes it funnier.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then someone asked like, the whole item, do you break it down by feature?
Well, because of the nature of it being pulled out of bowls, you may end up pulling something. I don't try to put repetitive, like I won't put nose in twice, but you may end up with similar type things. Hat and head covering could come up, or hair and hat. So then you're adding hair on top of a already pre-existing hat, maybe, or things of that nature, or it could be nose hair or ear hair. It doesn't have to be head hair. There are similar things, but it should never be the same thing.
Gotcha. And then we have a question. Do you pull new prompts for each pass?
Yes, every 5 minutes the board gets cleared and another three prompts go up. So it's ever changing. Sometimes they get really kind of funny because it won't always be a physical item. It could be like a bumpy fantasy outfit.
What does that
What I
mean?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's for them to figure out.
So this you kind of just answered this next question. Are they all parts of a face? But
They are not. Some of them could be animal features, tail, horns, forked tongue. We've had sometimes I let the teens add the prompts and then it gets real crazy.
that was actually a question that I had. So are you just like in your office thinking, bumpy, dress, horn? Are you having a group of people come together? Are you pointing at a dictionary and picking words that way?
It's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of everything, just dumping, sometimes a word generator dumping into an Excel sheet, and some of us throwing out weird words. And I just I'm a word collector, like the Peter Reynolds book.
Our next question from Mary. What ages do you usually get? Could you scale it younger or older?
It actually started in Drawing Club, which is usually a group of like 7 to 12-year-olds. Then doing it with the teens was a really different and sort of fun thing because that's a group of like only 4 or 5 regular core teens that we have popping in, and they really enjoyed themselves. So I feel like I think you could even do it with adults and it would be fun. You could do it with any age.
It really does sound like a lot of fun. A next question here. Do you tell them to leave space on the canvas for the next person, or do they tend to do it on their own?
I do like a general housekeeping in the beginning, reminding them they are sharing this canvas. They should try not to make their things either too small or too large. I don't want them to paint the entire background of the canvas. It should be focusing on the one element that's being done from the three prompt words because it's not much fun if you get the canvas the third go around and it's a giant black face.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, what does Skibbity Toilet look like? I need to know this.
That is something I would love to know myself. I have not yet. This is a future plan. We're planning on throwing in all the brain rot words because of the current trending of embarrassing grown-ups and things. So
We got to throw Riz in there too, right? Like Riz
natural.
seems like one that has to be in there. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. We would be very Ohio if we didn't.
Danica just threw that in the chat. Ohio. I had some of my students in my library course class tell me that their kids are saying chips. That if it's like bad. Like if you're chips, it's bad. So I don't know if you hear that floating around. I'm just sharing that intel with you.
Well,
No cap. All right, everyone. Well, Eileen, I appreciate you so much sharing this with us. I think that this is so imaginative and really can go anywhere with as far as the words that you're throwing in there. So thank you for inspiring our group and starting us off today.
thank you.
All right, everyone. So up next, let us welcome Ashley Whitfield from Colony Library, who will be presenting fashion sustainability and creation.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so yes, I am Ashley Whitfield. I'm from the Colony Library, and this is fashion, sustainability, and creation. Fashion as an art form that maybe you haven't thought about for Color Our World, but I think it fits right in there. Next slide, please. So a little bit about my library. We have a service population of over 85,000 people. I just found out yesterday it's closer to 86,000 people, so we're big. We've got 17 full-time staff members and an additional 17 part-time staff members. Next slide, please. So for the program, I did this program for middle schoolers, but you could definitely do it for middle schoolers and high schoolers, just high schoolers. You could even scale it younger if you wanted to. So the teens brought in old clothing items that they wanted to revamp and restyle so that they could wear it again. And I also collected items from staff just in case they finished with what they were doing or if they just forgot to bring something that day. And they just made simple upgrades to the clothing. It was kind of like a recycled clothing program. We're a big library. There's a lot of big words in the title of this program, but it's actually a pretty simple concept. It was pretty much an art bar for fashion. So some of the things they did, they created crop tops. One girl made a crop top out of a basketball jersey. They really leaned into the fabric paint and the fabric markers. Things like that. We had a sewing kit. I don't know how to sew, but I had someone with me who did, so she was able to help them out with that. If you don't know how to sew, you can really lean into the fabric glue. So we did this over the course of 3 days. It was 3 sessions. Each session was an hour long. In the first session, kids learned about fast fashion and fashion waste. If you don't know what fast fashion is, I've got a few articles at the end of the presentation for you to read, and also the video that they watched from CBC Kids News. Basically, fast fashion is the idea, the business model that you see something on a runway, and 2 weeks later, you can buy a cheap knockoff version of it at Forever 21. They're very cheaply made, so they fall apart very easily, and it's creating a lot of fashion waste. It's polluting water sources and releasing a lot of microfibers and microplastics into the environment. So the first session, they learn about all that fun stuff, and then they get to the actual fun part of of recycling their clothes, because that's the way that to combat fast fashion is by recycling clothes using what you already have. So the second half of the first session and the next 2 sessions, they were just creating. Next slide, please. So you can spend $0 on this program. You can spend infinity dollars on this program. I spent a total of $10. I bought an extra pair of fabric scissors and extra fabric glue. With a program where the whole concept is recycling, we just raided our closet. I didn't feel that we needed to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff. I do recommend that you have fabric paint and fabric markers, because those were the favorite items that they used at the art bar. And those you can get pretty cheap on Amazon for like 20 bucks a pack of them. But basically, it's endless possibilities for whatever you want to have available to them. Again, sewing kit is not necessary. It's helpful for some things, but you can really just use the fabric glue. We provided some tutorials on how to make fabric bows and how to do the t-shirt tote bags. But I was thinking about it, you could go the extra mile and do Sharpie tie-dye supplies. Anything that you want, that you know about, is up for grabs. And the planning time was pretty minimal. It's just collecting all of the materials was the biggest time crunch. And then figuring out what tutorials you wanted to have available, if any. Next slide, please. So for this presentation, I've been pretending that this is my program. It wasn't actually my program. This was a teen-led program. Sophie standing there with Southpaw from the Valley Cats. She's the one with the glasses. This was her idea. She presented it to me. She emailed me this PowerPoint presentation of why we needed to do this program. She is a senior in high school, so she couldn't be here today. She's in class or doing whatever it is they make high school seniors do these days. And so as you can see, I tweaked what she sent me a little bit. Instead of doing 4 sessions like she wanted, we did 3. I made it just middle school instead of having the 4th and 5th graders in there. But other than that, this was her program, her idea. I stood in the background and was basically the teen volunteer for the 3 days. And she's the one who knew how to sew. I don't know how to sew. All right, next slide, please. Just a very quick plug for a teen-led event. They're very, very popular here. I had a Java coding club, teens, that was super popular. The schools loved it, that the teens were teaching this during their winter break. I had 2 teens that started their own nonprofit to distribute art supplies to a local food bank and kids in need who didn't have art supplies. So they wanted to do a collection at the library. So I said, sure, why not? I've got a picture here of my kids who did a pirate escape room. And the boy on the end holding the rum is currently my dungeon master. So teen-led programs are very popular here. Just make sure that the teens that do them are very trustworthy because you don't want to be worried about them not showing up. So when you do a teen-led program, a lot of the planning is emailing them and constantly texting them and saying, hey, you remember you're supposed to be here, right? Hey, Monday, right? Monday, Monday. So yeah, there's a little bit more planning involved in that way. But you want to make sure you have trustworthy teams doing it. And my last slide, next slide, please. So again, I'm Ashley Whitfield. I don't know anything about fashion. You do not need to know anything about fashion in order to do this program. It's basically just a craft program with fashion attached to it, recycled art, recycled fashion. This is a picture of Adam Sandler, who is my style icon, my spirit animal. If I could just wear hoodies and leggings all day, I'd be happy. So yeah, so hopefully this will encourage you to do some fashion programs, even if you're not into fashion.
If we could all only be as comfortable as Adam Sandler is at all
Right?
times, I think we'd be much happier in life. All right, so I have a couple of questions here, Ashley. So, someone wanted to know, what kind of fabric glue did you find works best?
It was kind of like that tacky glue brand. I can look it up and find the link and add it to the chat.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Someone asked, do you ever do a craft or fabric or supply drive to help boost your supplies?
We have not because our staff here is very generous with that kind of thing. So I asked for donations, and the next day I had the box was full. It was kind of insane. I had more than I needed. But that is definitely something you could do.
That's incredible. A few years ago, we had done a prom dress drive here, and I was drowning in just 80s fashion and sequins. It was wild. People are always really willing to get rid of old clothes that they have. I had a question as far as, what do you ever have leftover clothes, and what do you do with those leftover clothes?
Yeah, so they cut up a lot of it as they were experimenting and playing around, and that just ended up in a bin upstairs of like extra fabric scraps that we'll pull out next time we do the program, um, or for any other program that comes up. Anything that was totally untouched, I drove over to one of the donation bins locally after the program.
That's wonderful. How many times have you run this program? Was it a one-off or?
This was a one-off. Yep, this just happened the one time because I don't know if Sophie wants to do it again this summer. I'll have to ask her.
That's so cool. Someone wants to know if you could share the tutorials that you used.
Sure.
And along with that, I was wondering, that first session where they're learning about fast fashion and fashion waste, were they open to that part of the program? The sort of
Were they open?
educational, like the educational portion of it, were they into that?
They were actually, yeah. I don't think a lot of them knew about it to start with, so it was kind of brand new for them and kind of eye-opening because Sophie led that part. And she was very into the numbers. When I told her I was presenting on this today, she was like, just make sure you tell them about the numbers. I didn't tell you about the numbers. I left article. I have the articles at the end for you to read. But so she was very enthusiastic about it. So that made them very enthusiastic about it. She's going to go to school for marine biology. So this was very up her alley.
Incredible. We won't tell Sophie you didn't share the numbers with us.
I
That's
know.
okay. So someone asked, what tips do you have for fostering teen-led programs? What makes your teens come to you with ideas?
So we have a very big teen volunteer program during the school year. Our tag event, we max it out at 100, and I still get
Wow.
people trying to get in. And so we meet once a month, and I just try and let them know at all of our meetings that if they ever have any questions or they want to talk to me about stuff that they can. And that's how a lot of these come out. And one of the things that we always talk about is what programs they want in the library, because I can come up with a million ideas, but if they aren't into the same things I'm into, then they're not going to show up. So I asked them what events they want to do. And like Java Coding Club, how am I going to teach a Java Coding Club class? So I was like, do you want to do it? And they were like, sure, absolutely. So they came and do it. So it's really just playing into their interests and what they want to do and just finding out what they're interested in. I didn't want to do the pirate escape room, but they made me.
I feel like you could do a whole session at NILA or YSS or something about teen-led programs because that is such an incredible feat, especially having a 100 maxed out tag. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Let's see, we have some more questions here. Have you ever used the handheld sewing tool? If so, are they easy to use?
I have not. I, this I am not a fashion person. I'm not a fashion expert. I don't know. Maybe if someone in I know people that work in libraries are very, very crafty, and I'm sure someone else maybe in the chat has used them, but I have not.
Fair enough. Do you think this could be done as a one-day program rather than the 3 sessions?
Yes, definitely. We did the 3 days so that the fabric glue could dry. If they decided they needed purple thread and we didn't have purple thread that day, we'd be able to bring it in the next day. But yeah, you could definitely do this as just a 1 session.
Was there like one piece of clothing that they gravitated towards the most as far as what they wanted to make? I know you showed a bow tie there, but were there tote bags or just mainly wild t-shirts? What did you see mostly?
A lot of wild t-shirts. There a couple of them were very, very artistic, and they did things with that fabric paint that I have never seen done before. It was just painting pictures onto the t-shirts that it was kind of amazing. And then they did a lot of like cutting stuff up, experimenting with different things, trying to just change the shape of the things that they brought in. There were a couple tote bags, not too many though. Um, but yeah, the fabric paint and fabric markers were definitely the favorite craft supplies.
When I was about 8 years old in the 90s, I had a puff paint party where you took puff paint and like you glued mirrors and gems to t-shirts. It was a wild time. Um, so I don't know if we're thinking doing a retro sustainable retro clothing party, but bring back the puff paint. Someone asked, is there anywhere besides Amazon or Walmart to purchase materials since these businesses are intrinsically tied to fast fashion and weight
Mm.
cycles?
Um, I know the Joann's around here is closing, but you could do Michael's. The thing with these places is they're just naturally more expensive than the, which is the problem, isn't it? Um, but yeah, just local craft stores typically have like have the paint, the fabric glue and fabric paint.
And then someone asked, where do you get fabric glue and fabric scissors for $10?
That was on Amazon.
That was on
Yep.
Amazon. Yeah. It's tough. And then someone said 90s retro is very popular right now. Time for us to feel old. Yes. Yes. I think fiction that takes place in the 90s is now considered historical fiction or something devastating like that. But Ashley, thank you so much for your time and sharing this with us. I really hope to hear more about your teen-led programs in the future. It's really fantastic, and it's wonderful seeing that you trust your teens to run the programming at your library. So that's awesome. Thanks for
Thank you.
your program.
Thanks.
All right, so our third presenter up next for our first hour is James Richardson from the Huntington Public Library.
Hello. Hello.
Hey, James, and whenever you're ready, you can feel free to start.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll just want to provide a little context of how these programs came to be. I'm going to run through 6 program kits we've been working on. Me and Carmen Di Bartolomeo, sorry, for Finley Middle School, we've been trying to figure out 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for almost over a year, like ways we could do programs with the school, ways we could get into their school libraries. I'm sure lots of you have some issues with bringing teens into your programs for some of your lesser craft kits. Anyway, we came up with let's do craft kits for 40 kids. She has 4 sessions for lunch, so that's 10 kids a kit. Whatever. These are the programs we came up with. Now they have a theme each month, so we started basing. I developed programs based on those themes, and that's what we're going to go through here. I don't know if we're sharing this PowerPoint or not, but I have hyperlinks all over the place. So if this does go out, it should really be easy for anybody to just click and order. Most of the links do go to Amazon, unfortunately, but some are also Oriental Trading Company and things along those lines, Demco and stuff like that. So yeah, let's start. We'll just go next slide. Thank you. Okay. Albriez. These are, okay, so this was for the Hispanic Heritage Month. We wanted inspiration from This is Mexican folk art. You can do the next slide. Thank you. So we came up with these woodcuts. All these animals are like throughout South America, and these were the different animals that we did. So basically what they did was they attached a magnet on the back, and they would get like a white pen marker. And then they would get like 3 of them. If you want to go to the next slide. This is like our very first one back in October. Again, all these are hyperlinked. So what they would get in the kit would be 3 of these different animal shapes. They would get 1 of the markers, the permanent white marker. They'd get the magnets, and then they would get like a paint set. Now, what we found immediately was they would do them right there in the library. Then they would start sharing resources. So this like led us to our next kit. You're going to see like an evolution of these kits as we go along. If you go to the next slide, please. This is just the basic cost breakdown. So I'm giving you an example of 3. If you did set it up as a program kit for 20 patrons, you'd receive 3 different animals, 1 paint set, 3 magnet dots, about $650 per patron. But if you're scaling it up more than that, so you could do this as a program in-house as well, and have those just have like paint and stuff there, and then that would bring the cost down too. These were all made as kits to go. So that's that one. You could do the next slide. The next one was Native American history. So we did pinch pots as our inspiration piece for colors. If you do the next slide. Okay, so what we did was your basic Crayola craft. They would get 2. They'd get a white, and then they would get a random color. They would get some pebbles that they could put in the bottom of it, and then they would also get to pick an air plant. We ordered a bunch of air plants. Actually, if you go to the next slide for the components, there we go. So they get the modeling magic, they get the rocks, and they would actually get to pick an air plant. This is where we really saw them starting to work together and open those kits right there in the library at the school, 7th and 8th grade, which was fantastic. So they would like share and mix all the different clay, and they would leave them there overnight to dry. So this was like where our school librarian really saw that they liked working together too. And some would come in and just pick up and take the kit with them. But if you go to the next slide. Thanks. All right, and then this is just our cost breakdown. So again, a program kit, I'm sticking to about 20 patrons, but we were scaled at 40. And so the costs were just a little bit cheaper. But they would receive 2 to 3 model magic packs. You could give them 2 colors and 1 white, enough pebbles from like a 5-pound bag to fill it, and then 1 air plant. If it was in a kit, the air plant will be fine. You just pop it on top, and that's $6 per patron. Again, if you host this in-house, the costs come down because they're all sharing resources, and they're there for like an hour or however long you do it. Oh, next slide, please. Okay, so I believe it was January, October, November, December, January. December was human rights. This is where we caught the interest of Allison being at the high school. And this is where we actually started doing kits for middle school and high school. So that's 40 kits at each school. And I should say also that all these kits go every time. So this is the first month where we see an upbeat in like 80 kits, 80, and these count as program stats for us. So if you want to skip to the next slide, and this is what they made. They made silicone bead bracelets. Each was literally 30, each bead was like 30 different colors to remind them that there were 30 different human rights. Pretty easy to mark device. They would get 2 lengths of cord, and they could make their bracelets. And since they were already starting to share resources, it's not like they had to have like a rainbow bracelet. They would like combine colors and like share and swap, but it got it in their head. It got them talking about human rights. If you do the next slide. And we also included a flag. These are all the resources. We included, I can't point to it, obviously, because I'm looking at the presentation myself. But we included those peace beads, but you could do like earth beads or whatnot. Again, this is all like Amazon stuff. But look around. You might have like a local bead shop and things like that would want to work with you on this. So if you next slide, please. Cost breakdown. These were really cheap, about $3 per patron. And this was for 20 patrons, again, as I'm keeping it. And yeah, that's it. These are all hyperlinked. So on to the next one, please. Okay, mental health awareness. So now we were like sort of moving into full swing where we knew a lot of the teens were staying in the library, making the kits together. And then occasionally someone would just pop in and take the kit, which was fantastic. So mental health awareness, we set it up way more in terms of stations. And if you want to click to the next. Oh, okay. And this is where we got involved with our posters to really let them know what was going on. I started linking. So we did the sensory experience inspired by mental health. If you want to flip to the next. Okay, so I tried to appeal to all their senses. So they would make these little mandala wind chimes, the sound. They would get a stress squishy that they could paint, the star-shaped one. And they would also have this, the sand, the scented sand that they could feel and touch and smell. And these were set up into different stations that she broke up throughout the month, like in a week. So they would focus on a different one each week for the month. And that was cool. And they appreciated that. But they would also get to take the stuff with them, which is still, part of the main thrust of this. If you want to go to the next slide. Right. And these are all the components. Also, we have these bookmarks that they could take to color in, like positive word affirmation ones. Those we got from Demco. Everything else, I believe, was from Amazon. And if you want to switch to the next. And a cost breakdown. So this is a little bit more expensive program kit for 20 patrons in this case. 1 wind chime, 3 scented play sands, 2 or 3 markers, glitter pen bookmarks, about $7 per patron if it's a kit to go. Again, if you're bringing people in for it or you're setting up stations like in your library for the summer, then that would be cheaper and you could go more because a lot of these things come in, packs of 24 or 60 and there's nowhere. I buy bulk markers because we never run out. You can never run out of markers. You always need them. They always go. Next slide, please. Okay, this was really great. So this was Black History Month. We were inspired by the Almanacs by Benjamin Bedecker. You want to go to the next page? Okay, so this was really where you see the links to our databases. They can learn more. We had the Almanac publishing stations. We would set these up at, again, both school libraries, Findlay Middle School, high school. If you want to switch to the next one. So if you're familiar with bullet journal programs, this was another spin on a bullet journal program with a little bit more of prediction, vision board, kind of what would you like to see happen for this year. Benjamin Bedecker was his almanacs were really known for really getting into very local regional things, whereas almanacs up to them were very dry, sort of by the numbers. And he was a prolific almanac maker. So for this kit, all the kids would absolutely, if you want to go to the next one, I'll show you the components and talk about it. Okay, so for this kit, everybody would absolutely get one of the dot journal bullet journals, and they would get one of those 2-sided pens. That's something that they would always take home with them so they could continue their journaling at home. At the stations, we would have a mix of all these other stencils, washi tape, different stamps and what have you, and tons of stickers, which were positive affirmation stickers. Of course, those you have to kind of comb through because some of them are weird or misspelling because you're getting that at a discount. But as I would always invite both librarians towards the end of the program, the end of the month, I was tell them just to take the stuff home. If you don't need it, just they can bring all that stuff with them. They can get the markers and keep a stencil and stuff and keep their sort of journey going at home. Okay, next step. And the cost breakdown. So that's tricky. This can go up and down depending on what kind of journal you buy, because that's the main bulk thing that they're getting to take. So for ours, with all of that stuff included, and you figure those are supplies you can keep if you're keeping them in-house that you can keep and reuse, again, a bunch again and again, it's still about $6 per patron. If it's a kit that you're taking. Again, some of these prices are hard to say because if they're supplies you can use for multiple programs, it's less. Okay, next slide. Talking too much. This is our current ongoing one. And unfortunately, I don't have any programs, pictures of the teens using it because this is brand new. Monopoly. So this is inspired by Women's History Month. So we went with Lizzie Maggie, who invented Monopoly. If you switch to the next one, this is a fun one because there's also a Monopoly group that meet in that library. So in one of the libraries, so they're in designing. So again, we go into women's history. We talk all about Lizzie Maggie and how she kept her patents fresh, and that's how she was able to finally get credit for credit due. We had the Board Game Studio design poster. If you want to click to the next one. So they get a full Dry erase board game, they get 4 pieces, they get 2 dice, they get approximately 26 cards, 25 cards to start with. They get 2 random color dry erase markers, and the black markers stay in house that they can use. They get instructions basically on how to make a board game, some graph paper, and they actually get like one of the zipper bags to take it with them. And they get the whole thing. So if you want to go to the next slide, these are all the components that you have to purchase for it, and very colorful. Lots of fun. Next slide, please. And then again, so this one was a little bit more for the full kit because they really need all those parts to take with them. About 8 per patron for like say 20 patrons. But again, if you're doing it in house, you can buy more of those pieces in bulk. Someone might be like, well, I don't need 4 pieces, or I only need I don't need dice, but I could use more cards, and then they can share resources that way. And the next. That's my information. Please contact me if you have any questions or want to talk about how you get started with programs in schools. But I love talking about this stuff, and I'll take any questions or anything you need.
James, that was a 6 for 1.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm just thinking so many markers. We have a bunch of questions here that I want to get to. The first one, which is probably the most serious of all of them, is there a capybara woodcut? Is that come in the set at all? Do you know?
What was a capybara?
Yeah.
Oh, you could probably find them. Yes. So we tried to use all regional animals. Animals important to like Hispanic culture, of course. You go online and look, but if you have a laser printer, you can print out lots of different animal shapes too.
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah. Someone asked, did you include educational info in each kit, or did it match with what they were learning in school?
We did. So they're learning, that's the theme for the school. So that's like what they're learning, specifically focusing on. But we included the reasons, like we would include a sheet or the poster, depending on like what month it was, why we were focusing on what we were doing, the invitation to talk about what we're talking about, and how the craft syncs up. And even if like I get it wrong, I'm not qualified to talk about certain cultural things, but so even if I get something wrong, like why did I get it wrong? Like why would this not be exactly how like this color would be used, for instance? And it was great, actually.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for discussion there for sure. Someone asked, how do you package the kits? Were there inspiration pictures in each one?
Okay, yeah. So I tried to also include like a model for them to like see. Like an actual physical thing of you'll be making something like this. The kits, so what I didn't include was the bags. They were just like basic white bags you can get on Amazon, but we also have Huntington Public Library kit bags, which we would send over. As it started to progress, we started to see they were working more and more, and the librarians were like, they just stick it in their bag when they're done making it. So sometimes you can save costs that way too. But again, it all depends on the craft. Like the board game, we definitely had to have that bag. That was part of the full thing. So
yeah, that's a nice pouch.
Thanks. Yeah, now we're using it for our puzzles in Youth and Parent Services. So
there you go. So someone asked, how often are you offering these events / what is your prep time?
Okay, so it's once a month, and I use the prior month to prep for the following month. So we have it up to June. We have Jewish Heritage Month coming up. We have Polynesian, I believe, and then we have Pride in June, and then school's over, and then we'll flip over to the next year too.
And how long is it taking you to prepare 8 kits?
It's a bit so as you'll notice, I'm sure a lot of those crafts are just twists on crafts that you've seen many times before, even like pinch pots. Like I know it's pinch pots, but there's like a reason that we bring it together, and then we have the air plant that we try to add on, which is just like this extra cool thing that they get. Planning it can take a while because you want to be sensitive, but you also want it to be different. Each one should be a little different. How many woodcuts could you do every month? And then actually putting the kits together itself can take quite some time. We work with life skills, so high school students on different like learning tracks will come in once a week, and 9 times out of 10 they're on a good day. Well, they'll help us assemble the kits. If not, we have pages help us and stuff. But putting all those kits together takes up time, absolutely. But you get through
it. Let's see. So our next question is, did the teens want / need more instructions or structure regarding what elements to include in the almanacs? If so, what other tips or suggestions did you provide?
Suggestions we provide was feel free to add stuff. Like we definitely had like an invitation list of things that they can do outside of just the supplies that we listed. Um, like stickers on their own thing. They can make their own stamps along those lines. But no, I think they were overall they had like more than enough stuff to start with. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. James, we are out of time right now, but there are a few more questions in the chat. If you don't mind sticking around and maybe answering them there.
Sure.
This is really a great abundance of programs. I think there's just so much going on here other than just, craft kits. There's some real educational opportunities here. So thank you so
Please,
much
again,
for
I encourage
sharing.
anybody to contact me. I'm easy to talk to. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate it, James. All right, and finishing out our first hour, let's welcome Debbie Stern-Claire from Voorhees Public Library, who will be sharing their Midsummer Mad Dash.
Hi, does that sound okay?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, I'm Debbie Stern-Clark from the Voorheesville Public Library, and I'm going to tell you about the Midsummer Mad Dash. I would like to mention right away that I did not originate this idea. One of the New York libraries shared their version during a virtual summer reading workshop in 2021 or 2022, and then I wanted to try it. Sorry, I can't remember which of you it was, but please cheer yourself on in the comments if you are watching today. The Voorheesville Public Library is a small but not tiny library near Albany, New York. The average grade size in school is 100 students. Summer reading events for the teens are well funded by the Friends of the Library. You should attempt this program if you have a cluster of businesses located in your town. You have or would like to have a relationship with local businesses. You want your teens to learn about jobs and opportunities in your community. You like logistics and can anticipate worst case scenarios. You prefer to invest time, not money, in your teen programming. And you and your colleagues can keep secrets. And if you enjoy writing silly puns, riddles, and clues to stump your teens, but not so much that they can't succeed. You can't wait to devise challenges for your teens to tackle at each station. This was very fun. You want to start an annual tradition in your town and in your library. Next slide. So if you want to try this, you should start now. Start driving around town looking for businesses. If you locate a cluster with 4 to 10 possibilities, drop in if possible. Introduce yourself and give information about your teen program. Check their business hours and all that. Communicate with potential businesses by email or phone if you can't visit in person. Get names of supervisors or managers and their email addresses so that you can check back in before your program. Next. Once a business expresses interest, share ideas for quick challenges. Don't expect them to do this part for you. They have a business to run. And you know what the teens are capable of doing successfully. Once you decide on a task, provide any special equipment that will be needed that is not on their site. Give your business partners easy instructions. They have other responsibilities to tend to. Consider having volunteers at each business who can manage the challenges if you have enough help. My challenges were kind of long and will be shorter next year. Next slide. Start thinking up a riddle, pun, or clue to get the teens to each location. If you are stumped, you can use a code, but provide them with the solution key. They won't have all day to decipher your cipher or head off in wrong directions. Design a map of the game area. Next slide. Find one with businesses already marked online, if possible. Mark boundaries clearly. We made sure that all businesses were on the same side of the railroad tracks and marked the tracks out of bounds. We have very long trains going through Voorheesville. We added the participating businesses if they were missing, but we left the extras as distractions. Next slide. Logistics. You have to look at your map and choose a starting location if it is not the library. It doesn't have to be the library. I put up a small canopy on the rail trail for our start and finish. This starting location was kept a secret until 11 a.m. on Dash Day, so no one would go looking around at businesses and have an advantage at solving the clues. Then you need to plan the timing for each team. The hope is that each challenge takes the same amount of time, say 15 minutes. Teams will need about 5 to 7 minutes to solve clues and move to the next business. You don't want them to bottleneck up in one place. For example, we were very careful to make sure that the daycare center was very spread out with other challenges in between, so that the kids there would have a little break in between. Okay, next slide. We covered safety and respect. You should manage your teams and keep safety in mind. Participating locations had large yellow signs so that teens would not enter buildings that were not involved in the challenge. There was one semi-busy road they needed to cross, so that's where an adult was always waiting to help out. That was me, helping them cross the street. Teens did not wear name tags, only colored badges, you can see in this picture. Each team was required to bring one cell phone along and temporarily enter our library cell phone number in their contacts. I entered each team's cell number in ours as well, identified by color. I also had the business contact phone numbers. We even sent a test text before starting. All teen cell phone numbers were deleted from our contacts at the end. Next slide. Each team got a passport with a code sheet. So the red code sheet, I gave them the code for A and L and J and Z. I did not give them every single letter. They had to figure that out from the clues. And then that code was used for all of the clues that needed codes. They had the emergency phone number written on a card in there, and they had a side quest for bonus points. There was a pencil for jotting down points or code solutions, and paper to collect rubber stamps at each location. Next slide. Points. I made up the point systems for each challenge location. The teams were advised to be respectful and careful at each location. Businesses could award extra points or subtract them too, based on their conduct. So here are some of the locations. They went to the local thrift store and had to make up outfits. And the ladies there enjoyed giving the different categories and what the points would be. And I think they awarded everybody full points. So I included the side quest, and, ways to make the score slightly different, because nobody wants a three-way tie. Somebody wants to win. So it's good to have a competition. Next slide. Here's some more of the challenges. They were at Napa Auto Parts trying to choose car wash supplies within their budget. They got points according to how many cents they were below budget. At the party rental business, they had a variety of tasks. Some of them were folding tarps. Other ones had the fun job of filling goodie bags and using the little twist tie machine. Next slide. Here are chicken challenges at the daycare center, including including teaching elementary age campers to do the chicken dance. And luckily, those were the theater group girls that ended up with that challenge. At Carl's Custom Car Care, I don't have pictures because it started to rain, of course, but the children's librarian and I got our cars detailed for free. Next slide. Here are our happy competitors at the beginning of our first Midsummer Mad Dash. It's a good thing that we took a photo at the beginning since, of course, there was a thunderstorm in the middle of our race. We had discussed this possibility with the teens and advised them to stay put until any storm passed. They were all fine indoors at businesses. I was struggling to stay dry under my little canopy. Because of the storm, teams had to skip one of their challenge locations for us to finish on time. In the end, the points didn't matter that much to the teens. I had 3 groups of restaurant gift cards as prizes. The team with the most points just got to pick their favorite first. There they are, looking good. They were a little wet at the end. Actually, I was the wettest. They had umbrellas. The next slide. Your work isn't finished at the end of counting up the points and giving out prizes. You have to remember to go pick up your signs from those businesses right away. Be respectful of their space. Take back your equipment that you left there. And then thank your business partners. This can be through social media posts, which are free, listing in your summer reading publicity when you thank all of your donors, again, free. You can have a poster drawn by teen volunteers. You can drop off baked goods made by the teens, or coffee gift cards if you have funding. We even planted some flowers for the thrift shop as their thank you. Program costs, the passport covers were about $3 each. Thank you gifts for business partners were $100 because I wanted to really thank the first businesses that participated in this. And prizes, I had $75, so $25 each for each team of 3 to go to local restaurants. So but you could scale back and give whatever prizes you think your teens would appreciate. Yeah, that is, I think, next slide. I don't think I have a next. There you go. There's my contact information.
Debbie, thank you so much. This sounds like so much fun. We have a couple of questions here, which is the first one relates to something that you shared. Did you have a rain date set in case of inclement weather?
We did not have a rain date. The worst thing we would have had to just cancel it. Some of these businesses had set aside, they're only open on Wednesdays or, so there was a threat of rain, a slight threat. And of course, there was a thunderstorm in the middle when they were washing my car. They were inside vacuuming my car, or they were inside the thrift shop. So they were fine. And I was texting them, to stay where they were, or phoning my colleague who was also in the thrift shop, telling them to stay there, and then letting them know when the weather had cleared a bit.
That makes sense. Someone asked, could you do this with a poster in the window or a sticker to pick up versus doing a task at each place?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe you could even do like cut a picture into puzzle pieces, and they collect a puzzle piece at each location. I really wanted them to have to interact with the salespeople a little bit. At Napa, I wanted them to see that they could. I have very shy teens, to see that they could approach and interact with a business person in a polite way. So I wanted them to have to look around the business a little bit. So shopping for car wash supplies and problem solve a little bit. Like it was sort of based on The Amazing Race, where, they had to think that if we're going to have a car wash for charity, what do we need?
Sure. And feels like it's helping with communication skills as well, to get to go in and talk to people.
Right. And see what a store has that they may need, or, to learn about the thrift shop that they can donate clothing that they no longer use, but also consider shopping there. It was marked as a sustainability challenge. So just to see what's there, also as a place that they can volunteer if they want to.
That's wonderful. It seems like there's a lot of moving parts to this, but it's truly successful once it all comes together. Debbie, we are out of time, but there are a few other questions in the chat if you wouldn't mind giving those a look. And thank you so much for sharing this. And I'm glad that a past summer reading workshop inspired this at your library.
Yeah, they're looking forward to this year too. Thanks.
All right, everyone. So we are at the end of our first hour. Let's take a short 2 to 3 minute break, and then we'll be back with some games before we head into hour 2. See you in a bit.
Hi, everybody. Mary Fellows from Upper Hudson. I'm hoping you can hear me. Here we go. All right. We're going to do all the colors of teen literature. When I started thinking about teen literature, I realized that there are a lot of titles that have colors in them, and some authors too. So we're going to see how much you know. So I'm going to ask you to put your answers in chat, and we are going to start with the first test of your knowledge. So first slide, please. All right. Book title. We've erased the author name. We've erased the title. Who can tell me the title and extra points if you can tell me the author on this one too? Where's the color in this one? Okay, Michelle, you got it. Absolutely. Next slide. That's it. An abundance of Catherines. Okay. Yep. And the hint, you got a hint there too. All right, here's the next one. What about this one? Who knows this one? So we've got the title, and then we need to know the author, because where's the color? Where's the color in this one? Oh, Lois. Yep. Yep. Laura Ruby. Exactly. Team effort. Good job. Next slide will show this one. Yep. Bone Gap by Laura Ruby, which, if you haven't read this, that's a great book. All right. Derek, your prints here. Okay. This one next to this one. All right. What about this? Ooh, Colleen. And who is our author that that has the color? Okay, or actually the author doesn't, it's the title. It's the 13 Little Blue Envelopes by Maureen Johnson. All right, good job, everybody. Okay, there you see it. Next slide. Okay, how about this one? I was picking on Prince winners for this. Okay, I'm seeing the title, Concrete Rose. Angie Thomas, exactly, exactly. All right, next up. There we go, we see it, yep. How about this one? It's a pretty iconic cover. I think you guys are going to know this one for sure. Oh, all right. Alexis, you nailed it right there. Blue Lily, Lily Blue by Maggie Stiefvater. Yes, absolutely. That's it. Okay. Next. How about this one? All right. Alexis nailed it again. Jack, can you show us? There we go. Scarlet. Okay. And this one? Yeah, Peter, you know the author. Great. Paper Towns. Exactly. It says show. And I think we have one more. Let's see. That's it. How about this one? Again, pretty familiar title. Yeah, everyone's getting the title. And right, Michelle, Rainbow Roll. Good job. All right. You guys know your colors. That's the end of our transition, and I bet we're ready to go back to our workshop. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, Mary, for that fun transition. And there's a couple titles that covers I didn't know. So got to be looking at my covers more here. I'm LJ Martin from the Chautauqua Cattaraugus Library System. I'm going to be your MC for hour 2, packed with 4 more great programs. Just a couple reminders at the beginning. If you're just joining us, if you could change your name so to match what you registered with. If you are looking for a schedule, there will be a link in the chat so you can see what's coming up. If any questions that may come up as our presenters are presenting, you can just pop those in the chat. Please put a Q in front of the question. That helps our back-end team to find those quickly. And then presenters, if you could just say next slide, Jack, who's doing our presentation advancement, will work with you on your presentations. That being said, let's get right into our first presenter. Suzanne Cardinal from the NASA Free Library is going to be talking to us about the Teen Bake Off 1950s. Can't wait to hear about this. Suzanne, over to you.
All right, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, you're sounding good.
Awesome, thank you. Great. Well, thanks everybody for giving us a listen today. I'm going to be talking about our 1950s Bake Off. This is a really fun program, and I work at the NASA Free Library. If somebody could do the next slide for me. So just some quick facts about our library. We are a very small library. We have a population of about 5,000 people. It's a nice little rural area just east of Albany. We do have a very active group of teens that always help out during our summer reading, which is wonderful. And because we are a small library, we are always looking to see how we can keep things as inexpensive as possible. One of the reasons why I love this program is that it's free. It will take a little bit of planning, probably about 8 hours or so, and then also about an hour or so for execution. Next slide, please. Why host a teen bake-off, you ask? Well, as I'm sure all of you know, teens love to eat, and they do also love to bake, which we also love as well. One of the great things about this program, this is a bake at home program. And because of that, I find that we get all sorts of teens that don't come in for programming do participate in this program. So it really allows those kids that may feel a little shy for coming in will participate in this. Another reason why I loved this particular program is that because it was dated, they did need to do some research and some writing for me as well. And baking is so good for independence. The kids just love it, and it definitely allows them to explore their independence at home with baking. Next slide, please. What you will need to succeed. The big thing are volunteers. You need judges. You need some volunteer judges to eat lots of sugary desserts. Teens love their sugar. These are never not really sugary. You can see pictured here is that I did manage to convince Mary Fellows from the Upper Hudson Library System to come and judge a couple of times. Always really fun. Another thing that you need is to make sure you have a rule sheet for the participants that you're going to have. Maybe a prize, that's kind of up to you. Some years I do a prize, some years I don't. This past year I did give them a prize, and it was just a prize for a local business for them to hit up a restaurant. Another thing to have on hand are sticky notes, plates, forks, knives, that kind of thing for your judges, and a place to hold judging. We do not have the teens there present for judging, just to make things as easy as possible. And the sticky notes were so as the baked goods come in, that I would give them a number, so nobody knew whose was whose. Next slide, please. So this is how this wonderful event works. I would give them a rule sheet on a Monday, and then they had to go home and bake and then bring it in on a Thursday. Rules were fairly straightforward. I'm not really into rules for the most part, but for this particular event, I always had to make sure that they did have some. Typically, my most important rule was that they had to bake it themselves. They needed to do all of the work themselves, maybe a little bit of help if they needed help with the oven, if they needed help mixing something, that kind of thing. Because this was 1950s themed, they needed to tell me where they got the recipe, how it was related to the 1950s, and then of course give a copy of that recipe as well. This particular bake-off totally been really fun with casseroles, and I thought about doing casseroles and dessert, but I figured it'd be hard to judge a savory versus a sweet thing, so we just kept it to dessert items. Next slide, please. We also provided some resources for our teens. I am a huge fan of B. Dylan Hollis, and if you have not checked out his YouTube channel, please do so. I pretty much inspired this from his YouTube channel. His cookbook is so fantastic. It is actually themed, and each chapter is a different decade. So this was really a really wonderful resource. I had multiple copies of his cookbook on hand. I did not put his YouTube channel there for them to check out, only because sometimes he can be a little bit spicy at times. I also found another great set of YouTube desserts that were 1950s as well. And you can see there's lots of Jell-O there. I really expected to see some Jell-O recipes from our contestants, but sadly we did not. Next slide, please. Results. Oh my goodness, look at all these awesome desserts. I'm going to run through them just so you can see what the teens made. We had 7 participants this past year. Some years we get a lot more. So we had the first one up is actually a tomato soup cake straight from B. Dylan Hollis's cookbook, and a 7-Up cake. Loved that. So fun. We had lemon chiffon bars. That bottom one is a strawberry angel food cake. Then we had a coconut chiffon cake, which was also amazing, and not pictured was a carrot cake, and a chocolate bun cake. They did a phenomenal job. These kids really love their baking. Next slide, please. Judging. So again, I am never a judge. I always want to judge, but I know the kids too well. And so I try to make this as objective as possible. So keeping me out of the judging is definitely the best way to do that. And this is how we judge them. We tried to, again, make it as objective as possible. So every cake that came in would be given a number so they could decide who the winner was. The kids would drop off their baked items. I would, again, give them a number. So after they left, that our people that work in the library wouldn't know whose is whose. And this is how they judge them. So appearance was a little bit important, clearly not as important as taste. And execution of the recipe. Was it properly baked? You know, was it underbaked? Was it overbaked? Was it dry? That kind of thing. And for this one, of course, does the recipe reflect the 1950s? Yes or no, as it works. And we'd always allow the judges to try those cakes as often as they needed to, and we would let them kind of come to consensus for who they thought the winner was. And then I would go ahead and announce those winners on Facebook as well. Next slide. Other bake-off ideas. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit. Sorry about that cake in the middle of my sentence there. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the way that I've done this in years past. I've always kind of centered this on the Great British Bake Off and have done that second event that they always do, where it's the blind bake off, where everybody makes the exact same food. So I've done that multiple times in years past. So I picked out a recipe. I have gone ahead and gotten most of the ingredients for the teens and then sent them home with the recipe and the ingredients, and then they had to bring it back, and then we judged on that. So that is certainly one way to do that. I think I might, this upcoming summer, I'm absolutely going to do this again, but I think I'm going to do a rainbow bake-off, or we might do sculptures. That's what's behind that cake. So that'll be really fun too. You could certainly have them do that. And then also painting, like painting on the cake. Maybe is it a cake spinoff? Could certainly be really fun. And then finally, a collaboration bake-off, bake in pairs. And last slide. And if you guys have any questions or want to see any of this information, feel free to contact me, and I'd be more than happy to send all of this information your way. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. I think you've made everyone hungry that has been watching this morning. I know I'm hungry and want some good cake, but this is a fantastic program. A question came in for the program where they baked at home. Did you have them bring in the recipe card when they brought their desserts in?
Yes. So that was part of this program, is that they always had to tell me exactly what they baked. So yes, they told me every recipe came in, so I knew what the ingredients were.
Oh, good. And then how do you, did you kind of have to go on like honor system that the adults didn't help them when they were baking, or did you have any way to know that?
Well, let's just say that I definitely had one year where it was very clear to me that a parent helped. Everything was just a little bit too perfect. So I kind of said, like, I believe that a parent helped with that. So we kind of took a few points off for that.
Okay. Another question had just come in. Would it be possible, what do you think about bringing in an expert baker to talk about careers in food or pastries?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Before the pandemic, we actually used to do a whole multiple week course that was called Teen Chef. And we had people who were bakers or chefs come in and actually try to help them bake. So this is
Oh,
definitely
wow.
something you could do that way as well.
Oh, that's awesome. With the judging, I know you didn't have the kids there, but was there an audience who could be there to see what the desserts were and how they tasted or the feedback?
We haven't had an audience. I haven't really thought about having an audience, only because I think that would just make the judges feel concerned about how they feel about it. It's kind of hard to find your reaction if something tastes a little bit stranger than you would like it to.
Mhm.
So we haven't done that, but we certainly could, and I'm sure the judges would be okay with that too.
Well, that sounds good. Question came in. Do you think there'd be a way to adapt it without actually baking, more so like guessing the ingredients? Probably not as fun and independent, but
Oh yeah, I'm sure that would be a really fun thing to do. Anytime you bring food in and make them eat it, they're all about that. Sounds like a really great idea. I'll have to write
well,
that
they
one down.
are. I know teens are about food, adults are about food.
Totally.
Great way to bring them in. Next question that came in, if they're baking at home, What about having them submit a video of their process?
Oh yeah, we could absolutely do that. It's funny that they're so excited about it that I don't even feel like that I need to see a video, but they certainly could. This past year I had two brothers, and they like wanted to know exactly when we were done baking so they could come and get back their cakes. So again, they just love this. They love eating their cakes. It's really fun.
Oh, that's great. And you kind of mentioned at the end that you did something based on the Great British Bake Off where you just gave them the instructions and ingredients.
Yes.
How detailed do you provide the instructions? Like, do you know if they have a basis understanding of baking, or like, how did you field that one?
Yeah, well, I think that the kids that decide to bake really are already bakers, and
Mhm.
have already done some baking. During the pandemic, when everything was closed, I did some online baking with them. So definitely some of the same kids were doing that. So I think that in general, they've all done some sort of baking. And it's amazing, even with one recipe, how different the kids made that. I mean, like for that particular one where I gave everybody the same recipe, we I did not allow them to add anything, and sometimes they did anyway, and sometimes that turned out great. One year I
Mhm.
actually did it where I gave them very basic ingredients. So everybody got the same ingredients, and then I said, you can add two more ingredients to this list and see what you come up with. And that year it was amazing what those kids did with
Oh,
those few
wow.
ingredients. So
Oh, that's great. Oops, sorry about that. One other question, two more come in, and then we'll have to, if any more come in, I'll have you answer them in the chat. But how
sure.
many judges do you usually have?
It depends every year, but usually at least three, sometimes four. Um, if you have a really big library and you're going to have a lot of people, a lot of kids, I think you could absolutely, have a lot more judges if you need them. But that seemed to work really well for us.
Oh, good. And the last question that came in is providing ingredients or giving gift cards to the grocery store to the participants so they can access that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I did with this last year because this is the first year I didn't give any ingredients. I just said contact me and I'd be more than happy to provide the ingredients if they needed them. But in the years past, I've had like to do that because I do feel like it just allows anybody to participate in this program.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much again for sharing this amazing program. And we hope all your future baking endeavors are as successful and good tasting.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move away from the cakes and we're going to go into story shape shifting. This is by Danya Swade from the Baldwin Public Library. So we're going to go right into story shape shifting.
Thank you. Yes. So my name is Daniel.
Oh, we lost your sound.
Is that working any better?
We can hear you, but you're very far away and muffled.
Let's try it. Is that one better?
That's better.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yes. So this is a 7-week program series that I will be doing this summer. So we can go to the next slide. Each week, we will learn a different style or method of storytelling. So I'm looking for about 10 teens per one librarian, and it's a pretty low cost program. So these are this is how the 7 weeks will be broken down. And if we go to the next slide, we're also focused on these key storytelling elements. It's just a good outline or guide for the teens each week, something to keep in mind as we're learning about the different style. So if we go to the next slide, yes. So we'll go over those the first week, and then the first style will be oral storytelling. So I'm going to focus on the Haudenosaunee, the indigenous people of Onondaga County, and using videos from the New York State Museum. We're going to learn about the importance of oral storytelling for people to tell their own history and their own stories in their own voice and preserve it that way. And we're also going to watch examples from a Haudenosaunee storyteller. And then the related activity that will also work as an icebreaker, because it's the first class, will be for teens to work together to tell a story sentence by sentence. And then we're going to try to retell that story maybe 2 or 3 times and see, can we maintain, we don't need to retell it verbatim, but can we maintain the moral of the story or the plot of the story? How does it change every time we tell it, and what stays the same? So then week 2, if we move to the next slide, is visual storytelling. So we'll talk a little bit about cave paintings, and we're going to talk about the early graphic novels, first published graphic novels, and we're going to review some comic strips from the 1800s, see if those are still funny. We'll see. And then the activity, teens will draw their own comic strips. And if they want, it would be interesting for the teens to try to combine their comic strips together to see if they could tell one cohesive story. And then they can add extra panels when they're combining their comic strips together to see what they can add and work together to create to make that cohesive story. And related to that, we're also going to have a big piece of paper. We'll roll that out this week. And at the end of each class, the teens can draw what they did in that class or how they felt or anything they'd like. And this is going to be their cave painting. And we'll do it at the end of each class for the remaining 6 weeks. And then we'll display that in the library at the end of the program. So if we go to the next slide, week 3 is silent storytelling. So we're going to watch some clips from some classic silent movies. We're going to talk about the miming and the art of that, as well as interpretive dance. So we're going to talk about how those key storytelling elements that we went over the first week can still be seen, and how we can interpret stories through this silent medium, like how when we watch maybe more fluid movement of the body, how do we interpret and what do we think the story is telling that way versus if it's like a little more of jerky movements. And then the related activity is going to be the teens will have like a task, like walk across the room. And then the other teens can shout out different adjectives. Can you walk across the room excited? How are you going to walk across the room that versus angry versus maybe when if you're trying to sneak across the room, different things like that. And how are we moving our body and our faces differently without using language to tell that story or to emote, to show that emotion. And then they can even get a little bit more complicated, like, okay, you're surprised now, but you're surprised because, you know, it's a birthday party or anything like that. So that would be week 3, and then we're going to move on to week 4, which is my favorite, which is shadow puppetry. So that is a very traditional method of storytelling that's been around for over 2,000 years across the world. So we're going to talk about shadow puppetry in parts of China, Asia, and Southeast Asia, as well as in the Middle East, especially Turkey. And then the activity will for the kids to make their own shadow puppet show. So they can go a little bit more straightforward if they just want to cut out shapes from construction paper and put that on popsicle sticks, or they can make it a little bit more elaborate if you use brass fasteners between the limbs of the animal or the person so that those could move independently. This is if you wanted to create multicolored shadow puppet show by using these light bulbs. And putting the shadow puppet in front of the light bulbs, or you could go the more traditional route, which would be to hang a white sheet that's backlit and they can tell their shit. And so for the story, they can use and create the shadow puppets to retell that story from day one that we told together for oral storytelling. Maybe they want to use the backgrounds they created when they drew their comic strip, and that's the story they want to tell, but now through shadow puppetry. So they can build on what we have done in the previous weeks and use that as they move forward to, you know, further perfect what story they want to tell or tell something brand new each time. So for week 5 is poetry. So we are going to read and watch these poems by these poets, and then talk a little bit about how they made us feel, what we think about those. And there's also going to be a little bit of silent time where they can read different poetry anthologies that I will put out, just because I think with poetry in particular, a lot of times we're discussing and going through maybe more difficult or private emotions. So to get that sense of how they can view and how they see themselves in different poetry if maybe they don't want to talk about it too much in front of the group. And then the related activity to that would be, I saw this also in the manual that I really loved, redacted poetry. I think it's a great discussion for the teens about how we can create something by taking away parts that already exist, but blocking them out and taking them away. And you can find the words that you want to say already in there. And they can also make poetry from magazines, and they can cut out the words and put them into specific shapes if they want to do it that way. And I also love the idea of this is a great way to extend the program outside into the young adult area. So for teens that aren't participating in the program. And then week 6 is just a multilingual storytelling. We're going to watch videos of these traditional stories told by native speakers with English translations, and we'll also look at books that are both in the native language and with the English translations. And we're going to highlight keywords. I'll have a big board that shows what each of those different words mean. And then they can use those words in their own storytelling. Again, if they want to use them to write out the story we told week 1, if they want to use them in their cave painting, if they want to use it in their poem, or if they're going to write kind of a script for the shadow puppetry show that they want to do again, they could just kind of interpret and use different languages, mix them with English to tell a story. But I think for this week, kind of just watching and observing how different people tell kind of similar stories that maybe they've heard before in the native language is kind of the vital important part for that. And finally, for week 7, hopefully you can bring in a live performance. This would be the most expensive, really the big cost for the program. A field trip, a live performance, or if you want to save the money, these are the kind of, the Bunruku Theater is a great mix of shadow puppetry, oral storytelling, music. It's like a Japanese method of storytelling, just videos of that, maybe something a little bit longer, 15-20 minutes. That would be a great way to end the program. And then having the supplies out if they want to redo anything, where they want to put their cave painting in the library. Do they want to present and tell some stories that they've been working on that week? They can do that as well. And then I think the last slide is, the next one is the last one. Yeah, if you have the big time consuming part was like the research and getting the video links and everything for the lesson parts of these sessions. That would be like about 10 minutes each. And I have all that done. So if you ever would like that or any information about that, you can always send me an email because I'm happy to pass it along.
That's fantastic. Thank you for
Sure.
sharing, but also willing to share all the work that you've put into this as well. Being that it's a longer program, 7 weeks of it, do you really encourage, or how do you get teens to come week after week, or does that not matter?
Yeah. They don't have to come each week. I was trying to restrict it to about 10, but if you do have help, then it could really just be a drop-in program. And we're going to kind of start fresh almost each week. So maybe like shadow puppetry might attract a lot more attention than maybe the poetry alone. So yeah, they could come and go as they please. It'd be nice if they came every week, but I know sometimes that's just not feasible. You go on vacation for a week. Yeah.
Wonderful. Question came in. Can you talk about the age group for this? Like, what's the range?
Yeah, I usually do
popular-
like upper middle school to teen. So I think you could, but you easily could do like 7th graders and up. But if you wanted to kind of scale it down, you could. If you were to scale it down for younger kids, maybe the lesson plan would be more like kind of some fun facts on like felt boards or something like that. So I think it would work. Yeah.
Do you
I
do you
usually
find
go
that
with the
there-
older teens.
Do you like that group? Do you find that there's a specific week that's more popular? Like you have a bigger attendance, like you kind of said, the shadow puppet.
Yeah, we've done that one before and it gets a really good audience. I have done poetry programs before, which also do really well, actually. When it's not just like, oh, we're here to write poetry, but there's almost like a crafting element to it. We did it with like collages before, that worked really well, or mixing like the poetry to make it almost like a 3D art, which we've done before, just like by almost like sculpting out of styrofoam and putting a bunch of like collage words on top of that with Mod Podge. That works really well. So it's kind of taking something maybe like traditionally they do in school or something like that and adding a little bit more elements to it so that they can focus on maybe the parts that they're more interested in.
Oh, wonderful. Another question popped in. What opportunities are there for the audience participation? During the performances, I should add in.
Yeah, so at the final week, if you want to bring in a live performance, they can watch and observe that. But also if like it could really be designed as like we do want at the end, instead of bringing in outside performers, we would like you as the teens to perform. Then you could insert maybe an extra week or take one of them out. And that final week, they could be really preparing whatever final performance they want to do. So if they have decided a shadow puppet show is what they want to do because they really liked that week, that final session, they could work on their shadow puppet show and then present it the final week, or maybe they want to finalize their comic strip or their poem. Something like that could work really well if you want to include a teen performing and doing a storytelling, telling a story at the end. I wanted to keep it a little bit, if they are working on something a little bit more personal and they just want these kind of tips and education for their own more like private work, I wanted to keep that option available for them.
That's great. One last question here for the long paper that you said you have them kind of add to each week after the second week. Do you find that that tells its own story? Like, does it through the process?
I mean, anything, yeah, on a large scale, I've seen works great. We used to do Pictionary on big rolls of paper, and they always loved that. We did like bingo on big sheets of paper. So just like that element always is really interesting. And it's a nice way to like, if you want to stick around after the program is technically done, a lot of times it really just ends up being like things that they like to draw or words that like, things like that. But it does look great to see it over the 7 weeks. And I think it's a good thing to put up in the library as a way to show what we've been doing that summer or working on that summer.
Well, fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing
thank
all
you.
of the work and the programs. Great work you're doing. And if anything else pops in the chat, if you could hang around and answer those, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next program is all about world maps, and it's the World Map Project done by Judith Wines from the Upper Hudson Library System. So Judith, right over to you.
Thank you, LJ. So as the name suggests, this is a project in which kids create a map of the world. I've done this at 2 libraries. One was mid-size, about 16,000 people, and the other was small, about 2,000 people. So it really scales well. Slide, please. So this really is a program that works best with older kids. I've done it with kids as young as 10, but the older, the easier. I would say you want at least 4 kids. On the upper end, it depends on how big a map you want to create and how much space you have. The kids really need to be able to get around the map and fit around it. This is a great project for kids who love art. I can personally attest that even though it's artsy, there's no talent required. So there's a kind of a sweet spot there. Kids who are into social studies, history, politics, etc. Kids who really want to kind of lean into their nerd identity. And kids who want to do community service. You can frame it this way, especially if it's going to be installed on the wall of your library, or older teens can work with middle school kids. So there's a couple elements of potential community service hours there. Slide, please. Okay, so you can go in a lot of different directions with this project. The classic is to draw and paint a map of the world. But you could draw and paint a map of anything. I've done New York State. This happens to be Paraguay. Or if your kids are kind of more on the creative end of things, you can make your own world and, of course, create that. Slide. So where? You can do this wherever you have a surface. You could do it if you're really committed on the wall of your library, or on the outside of a business in your community. The easiest thing to do is on plywood, any kind of light, smooth wood that's flat, and you can move around and maneuver around. You can also do it on paper. If there is a flooring business in your community, you may be able to get a donation. And really anything that you can create a 30 by 50 grid on. Slide, please. So this is an example of the map on a wall, and this is with 5th graders. So these are 10, 11-year-olds. So that's kind of as low as you probably want to go. Slide, please. Okay, So the big question, how much? This is a surprisingly inexpensive project. If you can get the plywood donated, you're probably able to do it for free. If you go to Lowe's, a 4 foot by 8 foot piece of wood is going to run you about $50. You just need something that has a smooth surface, and the lighter the surface, the less coats of kind of primer you'll need to put on. For latex paint, you only need like a pint of each color. Probably you or someone you know has that in their basement from leftover painting projects. Paintbrushes and Sharpies. Slide. Okay, so this is a project that originates with Peace Corps, and there is a manual, which I will put into the chat in a few minutes. So there really is a step-by-step guide for how to do this. Slide. So the first step is to paint your surface ocean blue, so white with a little bit of blue in it, and draw and label a 30 by 50 grid. And the manual really kind of breaks this down for you. Slide. So the world is divided up into boxes. So if you're making your own world, you will need to divide your world into boxes too. Slide. And the way you kind of take the map from a piece of paper to a really big piece of wood is this grid drawing method. So what we see here is Turks and Caicos, Haiti, and the DR. And you say to the kids, hey, do you see that island that's in Turks and Caicos? In the middle, about a third way down, draw a circle in the same spot in the bigger box. So it's really scaled up drawing. And some kids take a little while to wrap their head around it, but once it clicks, it's pretty easy. Slide. Okay, this is where the bulk of the work is. You will draw the entire world. Slide. Next up is paint. You, of course, don't want to have any two countries bordering one another be the same color. So you can either use the color scheme that comes in that manual or create your own. You need at least 4 colors. I'd recommend 8. The more colors you have, the easier it is to let countries dry while other countries get painted. So something else to think about. Slide. Okay. So the next step is to label your countries. When you're coloring or choosing your color scheme, you want to keep in mind that the darker the country, the harder it is to label. You can probably tell here, it's really hard to read Australia, but really easy to read Brazil. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And penmanship helps. So this may be kind of where those artsy kids have more of an opportunity to shine. Slide. And for the why, your teens and probably you will greatly enhance your geographic knowledge. I have to admit that I did not know that Suriname was a country before I did this project, let alone where Suriname was. It really is a team exercise because all those grids that the kids are drawing need to join together. Attention to detail and working together is really key. And the kids have a huge sense of accomplishment at the end of the project. The sum is really greater than the parts. Questions?
All right. Well, thank you, Judith, for getting us on our preview of options for not just the world map, but other ways to scale this. A couple questions have come in. Could you do the grid drawing method for any picture per se, maybe not just the map world?
Absolutely. You just need to figure out that ratio of 30 to 50, or you can, if you're kind of spatially inclined that way, your own ratio. But yes, you can use this technique on anything at all. The manual actually has some practice exercises, and I think you start off drawing bunny rabbits.
Ah, okay. That's really great. How long does it take for the drawing process? Like, especially if you're doing a really big mural of the world.
Yeah, I would say if you had like 6 kids, it would take a couple of 2-hour sessions. It's
Okay.
a lot of people hours.
And would you think maybe doing it over multiple days, especially because you talked about letting the paint dry so you don't
Oh
flood
yes,
some
this
trees?
is absolutely, you could either do this as kind of an intensive kind of boot camp world map project in which you would need probably at least 2 days. But I would say you could either do it over the course of the summer, twice a week, or you could have the kids come in every day for, depending on their age, a week or 2 weeks.
Fantastic. And for the beginning, the initial sketching, what medium are you using? Pencil, marker?
Definitely pencil.
Okay.
Mistakes will be made.
And how do the kids react when those mistakes are made? Are they like that
I
encouragement that it's okay, you can erase?
That's exactly why you do it in pencil.
Mhm.
And you do it as lightly as possible because if you're painting a country yellow, you don't want to see those pencil lines. You will go over all the borders with Sharpies. But it's done in pencil because we're literally penciling it in, which means you can easily erase it.
Oh, great. Would you recommend other mediums besides paint, or have you worked with other mediums?
I have always done paint. I think it's the fastest. You cut 2 coats looks better than 1 coat, especially in the dark colors. You certainly could do it with Sharpie, markers, crayons. I think on a smaller map that would make more sense. For the ocean, because you paint the entire background that ocean blue, you would almost certainly want to do that with paint.
Okay, good to know. Do you think you could do this, or how would you work it as a passive program? Would you leave everything out on the work surface with instructions and supplies, or do you think more instruction is needed with
I
this?
think for teens, you would need instruction.
Okay.
I think that for maybe older teens or adults, you could kind of do an intro in which you kind of teach the technique and then have them work on it. But everyone needs to be, I want to say on the same page, literally on the same board. So everyone needs to understand how it works. Otherwise, your continents may just misalign.
That makes sense. Because it's done in pencil at the beginning, can you recommend any decent erasers that you found work really well?
You know what? I should have put that on the supply list because you do need erasers. I'm sure we just use the pink Faber Castell, nothing special. But yeah, nice erasers would be bonus.
That's great. And just talking with the age group, because you said you've done it as low as 10. What are the obstacles with working with younger children as opposed to, you said it's easier with the teens, older teens?
It's easier with the teens because they tend to pick up the technique faster. And are also a little bit more self-reliant. I made copies of the manual so kids could refer and kind of go on to the next page. So they just need less hand-holding. And it was nice to see the older kids kind of literally like hand-hold the younger kids through the grid drawing initially.
Well, that's fantastic. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions so far. If you're able to stay around, if any other questions pop in, could you do that?
Of course.
Thank you again, Judith, for sharing this great project and different ways to scale it for libraries and ages. All right. For those of you who are just joining us, just a quick reminder that if you could change your name, your Zoom name to match what you registered with, that really helps your consultant at the system to get you the CE credits at the end of this program. And we are coming up to the last program of this hour, but we're not done with the full workshop yet. We're going to be moving over to Artist Trivia Bingo. I like trivia and I like bingo, so I'm curious to see how this all comes together. This is with Amanda Borgaya from the Uniondale Public Library. I hope I said the last name right. If not, I apologize. But I'm going to turn it over to you to learn about Trivia Bingo with artists.
Okay. Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Amanda Borgia and I am the head of young adult services at Uniondale Public Library. Next slide, please. So just some quick facts. Uniondale Library is located on Long Island in Nassau County. It serves a population of approximately 33,300 and the community's demographics are primarily Black and Latino or Hispanic. This summer will be the first time I will be having artist as the topic or category for Trivia Bingo, but this is a program I've done in the past. I did it for Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month with fictional characters, and just last week for Women's History Month. And this program, it can be categorized as teens only, adults only, or for an all ages or family program. Next slide, please. So what is Trivia Bingo? It's bingo with a trivia twist. Instead of calling out numbers like in traditional bingo or people or objects, you read facts and attendees will guess the answer. Once the answer is revealed, they'll see if they have it on their bingo card. So it's not about getting the answer correct, that's just bragging rights, but it's still about luck and if they have it on their bingo card and get to mark it off. Next slide, please. So why run a Trivia Bingo program? Personally, I find it more engaging than traditional bingo where you're just yelling out B7, 065, or you're just asking things like who has a paintbrush on their board or who has the Mona Lisa on their board, which are all great programs, but there's no interaction between you and the attendees. This also will test your attendees' knowledge of your chosen topic, or it'll introduce them to somebody or something new. And you can learn something new too. So patrons, especially teens who may be intimidated to attend a trivia program because they feel they lack the knowledge, shouldn't be intimidated from this program because, as I said before, it's not about knowing the facts, it's just about luck. Also, one of the things I love about this is that it's a no cost or low cost program. So you'll need paper or cardstock and toner to print your boards. You'll need something to mark off your bingo markers. I just use crayons and we use new boards every game, but you could use things like scraps of paper or beads and reuse your boards for every game. And this is all pretty much like low cost you don't think of when you're doing your program. Prizes. This is where your cost comes into play. So you set the cost of this program with what you are buying for your prizes. If you just buy it's like $6 $5 gift cards, it's a $30 program. But if you are fortunate enough to have prizes donated or something already on hand, then it's a no-cost program for you, basically. So like I said, it's just, you can make it adapt to yourself. All right, next slide, please. So how to prep your program. So you're gonna wanna choose about 45 to 55 people who will appear in your game. If you ever paid attention, there are 75 numbers in traditional bingo, which you could go up to, but the more you have, the less likely you will get to everyone. But there are 25 boxes if you do your traditional 5x5 square. So you want to make sure there's enough variety. So you don't want to choose just 25. If you do want to feature a lot of people, you could always divide your list in two and use one list for games 1 and 2 and the next list for games 3 and 4. Completely up to you. You want to make sure each person has a short but interesting and informative fact about them for patrons to guess. You want to create your bingo cards. I typically make them as 5x7 images in Canva. You could do it however you want. Before Canva had there, I used the My Free bingo card generator. It's whatever works best for you. And then you want to have your facts on something to pull out during your game. Or write them on index cards. Once again, it's whatever works for you, but you need to be able to pull out your people and read your facts. And then just don't forget at some point to choose your prizes. Next slide, please. This is just an example of boards I've made in Canva. As you can see, the Hispanic Heritage one is kind of on the simpler side, and the fictional character one is a bit more complex. So yeah, and we'll get more into that with the time. Next slide, please. So advice, you want to create a mix of known and lesser known individuals because you want your attendees to feel like they know what they're talking about. And also don't be afraid to include somebody you just learned about. Try not to make your facts too challenging. And also I like to, because you said you saw my demographic, I like to diversify my selection based on the race, ethnicity, the gender, the time period, the reason they belong in my category, etc. And then for artists, I'm going to be going with artists that have different styles. Basically, like for artists, like you don't want to go with all the dead white guys. this is something I highly recommend, is to have an example person for promoting your game and when sharing instructions. People are going to ask you, what is trivia bingo? So I usually use Martin Luther King Jr. as my example when I'm talking about Black History Month, and just say like, this is the fact I would read, and you would guess it. And just remember, you're writing facts, not biographies, so you want to keep it short and sweet. All right, next slide, please. So these are just some fact examples. The third one is actually one a little longer than I would like it, but this is just to give you an idea. And if you want to throw some guesses in the chat, I can let you know if you're right. Next slide, please. So these are optional extras you can include. So I started creating a picture guide for attendees, and they like it because sometimes it's like they know the answer, but they can't think of the name. So this helps. Some of the younger kids, like when they attend, they look for context clues. So this will obviously take more time to do, but it's optional. And I also give at the end, which the idea actually came from a patron, I give a fact book out at the end. So it includes everyone we talked about and all of the facts. So that way they can learn and remember. And it's not something like, who was that person I learned about at the end? Okay, next slide. So time to plan and prep. So this will take time to do, but it is the type of program you can work on a little at a time while you do your other tasks. Yeah, so just to give yourself at least 2 weeks to work on this sporadically. I typically decide over a 3 to 4 day period who to feature and build my list in Google Sheets. Sometimes I add the fact when I add the name, but there are times where I'm like, oh, I want to include this person, and then I'll go and find the fact later. And then my bingo cards typically take me a day or two, depending on what else I have going on and how fancy I make them. So like the Hispanic Heritage Month one didn't take me that long. The character one took me longer. And if you're making the extras, it will take more time. Like I said, and then if you're having somebody proof, make sure you give them time to proof your work. And I will be happy to save you time if you want to run this program by sharing my list with you. Next slide, please. So just some last thoughts. I typically get about 3 to 5 games, whether it's an hour or an hour and a half. I stick to traditional bingo to make it easier. Don't be afraid if you feel your list is too much to pare it down. And you can work on this collaboratively. Ask people who you work with. Hey, I'm doing bingo on this topic. Who should I include? I asked people in my library for some lists and learned about some great new artists. All right, next slide, please. Yeah, so if you have any questions, you can answer them in the chat, or you can shoot me an email. There's my contact information, and I will be happy to answer any questions and help in any way I can. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing this. And now I know how you combine trivia and bingo. We had a couple questions come in here. The first one is, once you have identified the person or the people that you're working with, where do you collect your facts? Do you have a good, reliable source?
So sometimes I just do a Google search and look up like credible sources, whether it's the own person's website. I will use our databases, like I've been using Britannica School for a lot of the artists if they're there. If not, then I'll go back to Google and be like, let me find a credible source for this.
Well, that's good. Have you ever had a fact apply to 2 individuals by accident?
I have not yet had that, but if I do, actually I did have it once in Black History Month when I started reading, this person refused to give up their seat on the bus, and everybody started yelling at Rosa Parks when that wasn't the answer. It was Claudette Calvin, which they would have known if they would have let me finish reading the fact. But other than that, I haven't had that issue, and I do try to find something to help distinguish it.
Oh, that's great. What are the prizes for winners if you have any?
So when I do Black History Month trivia bingo, I get really cool prizes from Positive Promotion because they have a lot. But for like Women's History Month, I just got like Dunkin' Donuts gift cards.
Which I'm sure they were excited about those too.
Yes. So.
Oh, good. So you kind of switch it up depending on what time of year.
Right.
And then you kind of touched on this earlier, but how often do you reuse the same facts and cards for each iteration, or do you kind of just go back to the drawing board each time you want to do this?
I reuse them every chance I get. I ran my Women's History Month last week. I looked at that list. I was like, okay, who do I want to add who I didn't get a chance to add last year? And then you have to sadly think, who do I want to take away? I'm actually in the process of building one for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So did I take all of my Asian American women from Women's History Month and just copy and paste it to a new list? And the artist from this one, absolutely. Yeah.
That's
Just
great.
constantly reusing.
This question just came in. Do you ever have participants switch cards midway through the program?
So I will have them get a new card every game because we use crayons to mark off the board.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they'll be like, somebody got bingo, like, can we use this card until a second bingo? And I'm just like, sure, if you all agree. Because it's the program's for them. It's a library program. We're not playing for big bucks at some place.
And when you're making the cards, how many different cards do you tend to make? So there is different chances.
This is something I've been actually playing with and trying to decide. I feel like 40 is my sweet spot of cards. That I have enough for all of my attendees to play enough games and sometimes even get 2 cards per game.
Okay. That's great. Well, this sounds like a fantastic program. A lot of different way to utilize the idea with different history months and that. So thank you so much again for sharing this idea and your willingness to share all the work that you've already put into it.
And I just saw the cards to share them themselves is challenging, but I will happily share you the list to build your own cards. And
Well, thank you for that. That's appreciated. And just a reminder for everyone here, the contact information will be sent out once we get the recording finished, as well as all the PowerPoints. So all this information will be presented to all participants, so you don't have to be frantically writing everything down. Well, that wraps up our second hour. Again, a lot of great ideas. Hopefully everyone's taking a lot of great notes and starting to plan for your summer reading, adapting to your library size, inside, outside, all those great things to consider. We're going to take another quick break here, and then we're going to jump into our third hour.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back from break. If you're just popping back in, come on to our new transition fun. So we are going to do a little bit of some Rebus puzzle fun. This would be good for you to put up on a bulletin board, do some passive programs. If you're doing weekly challenges for your teens as they come in, they can solve puzzles every week for you and maybe earn extra chances at raffle tickets or whatever kind of little things you might want to provide for them just to get them coming in. Or you could put this as part of, if you use a electronic logging system, you could put it as part of a Beanstack program or a Read Squared program. So here's your first challenge. This is a Rebus puzzle. You can go ahead and throw in the chat if you think you know the answer. All right, I'm seeing some answers popping in. Jack, do you want to forward one? And yes, the answer is scrambled eggs. Nice job, everybody. Those eggs, there's a lot of them on that screen. They might be a little pricey this time of day. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, here's the next one for you. We've been having a happy couple of hours, right? Happy hour. Go ahead and forward it, Jack. Right. Okay, let's see what's next. All right. How about this one? This is our color challenge. So we had to have a color one pop in here. I'm seeing a bunch of people answering. Go to the next one, Jack. It is green with envy. Nice job. Okay, let's go to the next one. This one might be a little trickier. Has nothing to do with Christmas, even though it's red and green. Wow, you guys are on it. Are you in trouble? Good work. I love it. All right, let's next. This one might trip some people up. No pun intended. All right. I'm seeing a couple of two answers, which are the two answers that we normally get. So go ahead, Jack. What's the answer? It's the Eiffel Tower. Good job. But I will probably accept I fell down because I think that looks pretty close too. All right, let's go to the next one. All right. Let's see, what do you think? All right. Christina got it first. Yes, for once in my life. You can forward, Jack. Yes, nice. For once in my life. 1, 2, 3, 4 ones. All right, here we go. Next one. I was a little mad that this one wasn't blue. Felt like it should be blue. See the answer? Travel overseas. You got it. Perfect. Let's see the next one. I think there's a couple more. They're like puzzle whizzes. I love this. All right, go ahead, Jack. Try to understand. Try to understand that we're just trying to have fun. All right, let's see what's the next one. This one's super easy. Yep. Everybody's going to town. All right, greenhouse. Perfect. Let's see what's next. All right, this one is not what you think it is. We are still in a kids and teen venue here. Let's see. Let's figure it out. Let's see. Think about those E's. Think about those E's. Got a couple whiny guesses, and that's a good one, but think about the E's. Val, you got it. Win with ease. Nice work. All right. Do we have time for one more? I think so. How about this one? Let's see. So you guys can see how you can throw these up on a bulletin board and let your teens try to figure them out. And Deborah and Catherine, yep, you guys got it. Go ahead to the next one. Hold on a second. We have time for more. All right, let's see what this one is. Summer. So we are doing all this great work on all these wonderful presentations to get us ready for summer, right? We're doing SR and R addition. Got some summer. Let's see what's the next one. Again, I feel like this one should have been green, but you can't be beggars can't be choosers here. Split pea soup. You got it. All right, let's next. You got any guesses with this one? And it would be kind of fun to challenge your teens to actually make their own Rebus puzzles based on some of phrases or things that they've got going on. So, yep, we're sitting on top of the world. You got it. Jack, I can't remember what number we're on. Are we still have another one? I think so. Maybe. Oh, no, we're ready to go for the next one. Well, thanks, guys, for playing along. I appreciate it. Those slides will be in the thing that we share at the end. So if you want to use those as part of your passive programming, you can certainly use those. I actually found those on the Reader's Digest website, of all places. So definitely help yourselves, and I hope you enjoyed. Enjoy the next hour.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So hello, everyone. I'm Joni Loria from the Suffolk Cooperative Library System, and I'm here to kick off our final hour of the workshop. So a few reminders: if you are newly joining us, please change your name to your first name, last name, and library name for attendance purposes. The scheduled presentation will be linked in the chat for you to review. And when you ask a question in the chat, please put a Q in the beginning so that our backend team can easily find the questions. And for our presenters, please say next slide to move ahead. All right, so let's get started. Our first presenter is Karen Golding from the Goshen Public Library. Welcome, Karen.
Yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Golding. I am the head of Children's and Young Adult Services at the Goshen Public Library. in Goshen, New York. Next slide. I'm going to be talking about a program today called Volunteens. So we have a summer volunteering program specifically for teens in grades 7 to 12 in Goshen. We offer volunteer hours the rest of the year, but our summer program is very structured. I'm going to talk more about that. So it's open to local middle and high school students. And we have found that our local middle and high school students need a lot of volunteer time for National Honor Society, Junior National Honor Society, confirmation, scouts. So we wanted to come up with a program that would give them more opportunities to earn those hours. I know it can be a challenge sometimes to find a lot for your volunteers to do. So we needed more help in the summer. So we created this program so that they would be able to have good opportunities to earn a lot of hours. It runs for 6 weeks, which is approximately the same amount of time as our summer reading program. And we use our volunteers pretty much every day during the summer program. Next slide. So, like I said earlier, we found that our teens in Goshen needed a lot of opportunities to volunteer. I was getting phone calls almost on a weekly basis from parents, from kids who said, I need 10 hours, I need 15 hours, I need 20 hours. And we just didn't have enough for them to do to have so many kids coming in every day. So we decided to figure out a way we could increase that time. So we changed our summer reading program for the children. We pivoted to more of a store model where they were earning tickets for reading, and then they were using those tickets to spend money at a summer store to buy prizes. We needed more hands to make that run properly. We didn't have enough staff because staff was primarily running programs or answering questions, things like that. So perfect opportunity to give kids more opportunities to volunteer and to have a different kind of a summer reading program. So this worked out really well. Now, this summer program can be scaled to any size. We happen to have quite a large number of kids looking for volunteer time, but you could do the same program with a smaller number of kids just as easily. Next slide. So as I said, our K-6 kids participate in a reading reward system. It's a store model. So when we first started, they were paper logging. So they were logging their books on regular book logs. During COVID, we pivoted to Beanstack. So it was an online, but some kids didn't keep up with their logging, or parents didn't want to have to log the books on Beanstack. So they would bring their lists in and our volunteers would help them log the books. So that, and then they would, whatever they earned from logging, they would then use those tickets to buy prizes in the store. So I'll talk a little bit more later about exactly what the volunteers do. But we start promoting and advertising the volunteering in the spring. I just actually started volunteer advertisements yesterday just to get people ready and to know that it's coming. And then as we get closer, I'll pump up the advertising a little bit more. We offer volunteering, like I said, almost every hour of the day that we're open. So we have lots and lots of possibilities. So we can accommodate kids who can only work in the morning. We can accommodate kids who can only work at night. We offer limited Saturday hours, so we can accommodate kids who can't come during the week. We schedule our volunteers for 1 hour slots because we find that 1 hour at a time is easy. Anybody can come in and do 1 hour. If they want more than 1 hour, they can do more than one. We also schedule 4 volunteers for each hour so that we can have as many openings as possible. So we're not limiting. We don't necessarily need 4 volunteers for every hour, but we want to make sure that if a kid can only come on Monday mornings, that they have as much opportunity to get into Monday mornings as they want, for instance. I also hold training sessions for new volunteers prior to registration. The training sessions are open to anyone, but new volunteers have to go to training. And I do these trainings right before registration. I don't want to do it too early because I find that they forget. But if you do it right before and it's fresh in their minds, then it runs much more smoothly. Next slide. So what kinds of things do our volunteers do? So we have weekly shifts that repeat every week. So for instance, if the kid signs up to volunteer on Mondays at 9 a.m., they're coming every Monday for that 6-week span at 9 a.m. from 9 to 10. Those weekly shifts are for our store clerks, our bankers, and to help with our weekly story times. So store clerks, basically do exactly what it says. They run our summer store. So they stock the shelves, they keep everything neat and tidy. They sometimes help the kids pick out their prizes. They make sure that the kids are picking from the appropriate shelf and getting the appropriate prize. They collect the tickets. They mark off who has turned their tickets in so we know how many kids are buying from the store. That sort of thing. We have 2 kids assigned to the store for each hour. Like I said, we don't always have 2 kids for it, but we try to keep 2 in the store. Our bankers are the ones that are helping the kids with their book logs. They are giving out the tickets. They're keeping the Beanstack records. Beanstack is an online system that helps with reading challenges. So our volunteers have access, very limited access to the Beanstack, where they can mark off who has read or how much they've read, and then they can see what kinds of prize level rewards they've earned, and then they give out the tickets. We also have volunteers who help with our weekly story times. We run story times for the under school age kids. And these volunteers will assist the librarians or the staff members running the story time. So they take attendance, they do crowd control, they walk kids to the bathroom, they help them with projects, that sort of thing. And then aside from that, those are the regular weekly shifts. Aside from that, we have individual programs that we need help with. So we use volunteers for our kickoffs, for our finales, for special programs that might not repeat. And these kids do the same things that the storytime assistants do. They take attendance, they keep the kids from wandering around, they may help them with projects, they walk them to and from the bathroom, and basic program supervision assistance for whatever staff member happens to be running the program. Next slide. Okay, so registration is really probably the most labor intensive part of this program. The first step is to attend the training sessions, which is mandatory for new volunteers. I do in-person registration because I find it works better for me. You could absolutely do this online. You could use Sign Up Genius or any kind of Google Sheets or any of that sort of thing to do the registration. For me, the in-person registration is labor intensive, absolutely. But I do find it works better. If a kid can't come in for in-person, if they're away on vacation, or if they don't have transportation, that sort of thing, I will work with them. If they want to call in and do it over the phone, so they get the shift that they really want, that's fine. If they want to send a parent to do it, or I've even had kids who have sent friends who sign them up, as long as they have the information, the contact information I need, and that they know that the person signing them up is picking the shifts that they want, that's fine. So we start in-person registration on the last day of school. Our volunteer opportunities are weekly shifts up to 2 hours per week, and individual programs requiring extra assistance. So basically, like I said, the signups are done hour by hour, day by day. So the board that you can see in the picture is reflects every day and every hour that we have. There's 4 slots per time slot. So they come in, they sign up on the board, and that's it. And then they come in every week for that time, basically. So we create the big board, they come in, they write their name wherever they want to volunteer. We limit them to 2 spots per hour. Oops, looks like my time's up. Next slide. Let me just race through. So we have our kids sign in, they check in with the person in charge, and then we put them to work. Next slide. Each hour that they volunteer, they earn raffle tickets. And these are some of the raffles that I've had in the past. Every hour they get a raffle ticket, and then we draw the raffle prizes at the end of the summer. Next slide. And that's basically it. Questions?
Thank you so much, Karen. This was really awesome to hear about. I loved hearing about the incentives too, and the prizes and the store model. Sounds really, really, really cool. So if anyone does have questions, toss them into the chat. One question that I had was, how many teens do you typically get to participate?
So I have had as many as 130 teens
wow.
and as few as 75.
Wow.
But like I said, you can scale it to really any size.
Right.
It's really the scheduling aspect that is, you know, what I think works the best. It gives them a regular schedule to follow during the summer.
Absolutely. We just have we have a question in the chat asking, what is your best recruitment tool?
Honestly, I mean, we send information to the Honor Society at the schools, and we reach out to the schools and we advertise on Facebook and Instagram and things like that. But I don't find we need a ton of advertising because the kids are already looking for volunteer time.
Right.
So it just works out.
So that's amazing. So thank you so much, Karen. We really appreciate it. If there's any other questions that come up in the chat, if you wouldn't mind answering them, typing back, so that we can move along. So we have our next presenter is Stephanie Markham from the Jervis Public Library. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Excellent. All right, so my name is Stephanie Markham. I am here from Jervis Public Library, and I have done a clothing swap for teens, and that is an event that I hosted a couple of years ago, and it got really popular, and everybody loved it so much that I have done it 3 more times since. Next slide, please. So we are in Rome, New York, which is right in the middle of the state, part of the Mid-York Library System. And we serve a really wide-ranging population. There are people who are urban, like right in the city of Rome. We have suburban areas, and we go all the way out to the rural areas of Rome and the surrounding areas. Being one of the biggest libraries in the Mid-York Library System, we do draw from a lot of the surrounding areas, from the smaller libraries that are not open as often. So we like to see their patrons and they like to see ours. The clothing swap is supposed to reach all of these. And the kids, the teens, and I even open it up to young adults. So we get people up to like college age and a little bit after who are looking for new clothes. Next slide, please. I sort the clothes by type, and I have some of my real good volunteers get all of the clothes that we have collected, and I will talk about donation sources on the next slide, but don't move there yet. We go by clothing type, so we get a lot of donations from the community, and I have some of my kids say, okay, this is a t-shirt, this is a jacket, this is a dress, this is jeans, this is leggings. I very intentionally do not sort them by size, by gender, or by style. These are all great ways to make teens especially feel real uncomfortable when they are shopping. So I know a lot of them do online shopping because they hate trying things on in department stores. They don't like going to the plus size section. I'll have a lot of kids around here who are questioning their gender identity. So if someone who comes in male presenting clothes wants to try on a dress, we're real excited. We'll show them right into the bathroom. They have all kinds of private spaces. We have a couple of bathrooms and a couple of unused, storage closet type spaces where people can change either by themselves or with a friend. And they really appreciate, it seems, that they can just rummage through a pile and nobody knows exactly what they're looking for. Next slide, please. So I get the vast majority of donations for the closet swap, and it says swap. It's also a giveaway. They don't have to bring things in to put on the tables. They don't have to, give up something of theirs. They can just come and take stuff. The vast majority comes from our community. I put out a call for donations. I say, hey, we're having this closet swap. And a lot of times it'll get to a couple of other charitable organizations and they will tell their networks, and I get bags and boxes, just tons and tons of clothing. And some of it is absolutely amazing. Some people just, go to Target, buy $100 of clothes, bring it to the library with the tag still on, and that's phenomenal. Some is, vintage clothing from the early 2000s that a lot of millennials are giving up, and that's trendy. So I have several teens who are like, oh my gosh, this vintage style is incredible. I also hit up all of the businesses that I can find locally, and a lot of them ignore me, but I did make cold calls to Hot Topic, sent me tons, like a giant box full of clothes, mostly like t-shirts, old band t-shirts, old movie t-shirts, they're overstock. That was incredible. Fluid is a gender neutral clothing company, and they sent me a lot of their branded merchandise. And then Trans Tape, which does what it says on the tin. It's tape for trans people, clothing tape and body tape. And I have that available. I also try to get gender neutral and trans inclusive underwear still in the package. So if I have people who donate money, that's usually what I am trying to buy. Socks, brand new in the package, and anything undergarments. And again, I don't police who is taking what. So if someone of a certain gender presentation wants to take undergarments or clothes of the opposite gender presentation, that's why the clothing swap is there. So next slide, please. Here are some pictures of the clothing swap in action. We have it in our auditorium, and I get a whole bunch of tables, and someone donated these clothing racks that they bought for their own garage sale and then never used again. And here are just my teens, and they're shopping, and you can see everything is piled up. Nothing is sorted. Nothing is, by size or style or gender. I have my very fashionable volunteer wearing the classiest boots I've ever seen. And then I have a quote from my Discord server from one of my teens that says, me putting together a cute library outfit because I'm going to the library and cool people are at the library. I think the last thing you heard me say was, here's a quote from one of my teens.
Yep.
Excellent. I'm sure you read that quote while I was away. We
No
love
worries.
technical difficulties, and if I have them, then nobody else is going to have them. So that's great.
There we go.
Yeah, so here are my clothing swap in action. And we're going to go to the next slide, which I think is my contact information. And if you have questions, I will answer them.
All right, thank you so much, Stephanie. So we do have some questions in the chat. So one question we have is, do you ever have an issue with getting too much clothing? Where do you store those items before the event?
Yes, I do. And if I'm getting a lot of clothing, then I will have my people at the reference desk, who are our part-time librarians. They are wonderful. I'll say, open this bag, and if it's dirty, if it's gross, if it smells, then throw it in the trash. And that gets rid of some of it. Otherwise, my volunteers have to do that like day of. If I have too much on the day of, then I'll put out some of it at a time. And if I have way too much left over, there's a couple of places nearby that will take clothing donations. We have a wonderful program in our school systems called Connected Community Schools. And if any of you have a Connected Community Schools, they will take some of the clothing donations and keep them in their school closets.
Excellent. That's perfect. Did you have any older adults who wanted to participate? Did you allow them or allow them in or not?
Yes and no. So yeah, they say, hey, will you do this for other ages? Can you do this for kids? Can you do this for adults? Can you do this for me? And unfortunately, I just don't have the bandwidth to run a bigger one.
Right.
We do not have the space to run a clothing swap for all ages. We're not equipped to store that much clothes, and a lot of the adults who were interested, and the first time I did it, I wasn't thinking about, what could go wrong with this and what could people do to exploit this. We did have a couple of older adults say, oh, it's for my teen, it's for my kid. And then later, one of our other librarians saw some of the clothes that they had picked up at the clothing swap for sale on Facebook Marketplace. So now we have very strict, if you are a teen, you can come in. If you are not a teen, please come back with a teen.
Smart. And I think that that's, something that you couldn't have foresaw. So that's a really good
I didn't even think
tip.
of that, but apparently other people did.
Yeah, so it's a good tip to share. So be aware of that. We don't want to see it on Facebook Marketplace after. So I'm sorry, I can't speak. How far in advance do you start to collect the clothing?
So low key, I start to collect the clothing. I'll tell staff when the date is, and I put it on the calendar. For my summer swap, it's on the calendar on July 1st for my August date. And usually I do it like mid-August, right before the college students leave. So that's kind of my timeline there. So it's on the calendar, and if people bring things in, that's fine. Officially, I post on Facebook and Instagram about 2 weeks before and say, if you have clothes that are in excellent condition, that are clean, that have been washed recently, that would be appealing to teens and young adults, bring it. And, we get a lot.
I'm sure.
So
That's
officially 2 weeks.
okay. So about a 2-week collection period. Very nice. So one last idea that was thrown into the chat, which I think is a very wonderful idea of pairing two programs together. We heard earlier about the fashion sustainability program. I think this would be a wonderful way to incorporate if you had extra clothing items to recreate it sustainably teens can create their own fashion based off of the donations. So just putting
Yeah.
those two together. All right. So if there are any other questions, if you could please put them in the chat. And Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind answering, typing back to folks to do that. So thank you so much for your time and presenting. And we got through the technical issues, so great job. We appreciate it very
Thank you.
much. Thank you, Stephanie. All right, so thanks everyone. We are up to our final presentation of our workshop today. So I'm excited to introduce Doris Jean Metzger from Steele Library.
Hello, everyone. I'm from Steele Library in Chemung County, New York. And we are in the Southern Tier library system, and we are located in the small city of Elmira, New York. And today I'll be telling you about the wonders of a color war. Next slide, please. So we are the central library. We have 5 branches, and our service population is around 32,000 with the city and the surrounding area. We are also a mixture of a small city, suburban, and rural in our county. So it's the best of all worlds. Next slide, please. So what is a teen color war? This is a glorious opportunity for teens to get incredibly messy, throw non-toxic colored powder around at each other, and just make a grand mess. And that's easily cleanable. They absolutely love it. And I think you really can't go wrong with this program. We tend to have it after hours or later in the evening so that teens can go home afterwards. I highly recommend you do not let them back in the library after the color war because they will mess up your library with all that colored powder. Next slide, please. So for setup, it's pretty flexible. Designate a play area with clear boundaries, including like a safe area for the adults so you don't get collateral damage of powder on you. And also if there's innocent bystanders, patrons walking by on the sidewalk, we used to yell ceasefire, and everybody would freeze in place until the innocent bystanders had gone by, and then we would resume play. Obviously, if it's a really hot day, being in the shade is recommended, and have water on hand. Do not put out all the powder at once. The teens will go through it so fast and fling all of it around. So I recommend having some in reserve to expand the time your program goes on. Let's see. And tell them don't dump the whole container of powder on top of anyone's head, and no throwing of the powder in people's eyes. Obviously, accidents and the wind may blow things around, but it's a good guideline to have, as we learned kind of the hard way. It's a good idea to have a little saline rinse on hand, maybe use safety glasses. Those are some other pro tips. And next slide. So for supplies, the main key ingredient, of course, is the colored powder. Now, on Amazon right now, you can get them in 1-pound plastic packets for 8 colors, and it's $48. Or you can get it in bulk 3-pound packages of 6 or 8 colors. And I really like the Color Blaze colored powder. It has bright, vivid colors that wash out, but yet on the kids' old clothes, it really stands out and looks cool, as you can see from the pictures. If you have any left over, it stores very well in airtight containers. So I recommend the splurge on that. For the rest of the equipment, anything will work. Teens can use any kind of small cup to fling the powder around. The larger the cup, of course, the faster they'll go through the powder. Again, safety glasses and a saline rinse is recommended. And for the containers that you put the powder out in, it could be, plastic vegetable trays, takeout containers, dollar store things, anything you've got on hand will work. Next slide, please. Here's some other pro tips I learned the hard way. Pour that powder slowly because this fine dust comes up and then I'm left coughing in a cloud of color. Make sure the teens dress in light colored old clothes. The light colored clothing shows the powder, the color better. Bring old towels or have the teens bring old towels so when they go home in the family car, they don't ruin the upholstery. Remember, don't put out all the powder at once. And clean up, my favorite part, you just let the rain rinse it all away. It's non-toxic. It's not going to hurt anything. Now, some people do have recipes where they make their own colored powder with cornstarch and food dye, but I found that to be pretty laborious, especially if you're making a lot of powder for a large program. Next slide, please. So there's plenty of variations on this. It's kind of the imagination is your limit. Our teens tend to just like to run around and have a free-for-all and fling powder at each other. But to make the game last a little longer, you can do like tag or capture the flag. My library clerk, Cameron, was saying you could do like hot potato or have like a trivia game. And then if you get something wrong, or if you're doing musical chairs and you're the one left standing, you could get, clobbered with the powder. And he said it would be a fun punishment, like a punishment. So there's all kinds of ways you can do this awesome event. So I highly recommend, and we do this every year because the teens love it so much. Let's see, next slide. So that was a whirlwind introduction to an after hours color war. And thank you so much for letting me be part of this presentation program for summer inspiration.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful to hear. I feel like Color War is so exciting and so fun. It's perfect for the summer. We do have a couple of questions. So someone asked, is this program based on Holy? The
Based
holiday.
on what?
Holy, the holiday.
We do it we started doing it during Pride Month.
Okay.
But we can break it out anytime that it's appropriate to do outdoors.
Yeah, excellent. And I think that that's what's so nice about this sort of thing is that it can be connected to so many different holidays and events and monthly celebrations. So that's really excellent. So someone else wants to know if you provided any protective eyewear or sunglasses.
So we didn't at first, and then one person got dust in their eye and it burned. So that's when we learned better use safety glasses next time and have the saline rinse on hand.
Absolutely. I was going to say too, I had wrote down that tip of the saline rinse. That's a really good call with the wind or anything that blows into their eyes or your eyes.
Yeah.
So this next question is more of a another idea. Did you ever try making shooters out of toilet paper tube with a cut balloon on one end secured with a rubber band or duct tape?
No, but that is another example of how you can add your own spin on it and be really creative.
Right.
To be honest, that is beyond my skill level, but
I think me too.
They would love anything that would catapult more powder at each other. I think they'd be behind that. Yes.
Right. Absolutely right. There's definitely ways to do that. Very cool. We have a few more. So how many teens do you typically have for this sort of event, and how big of a space would you recommend?
Well, I sort of fly by the seat of my pants. If you normally get a lot of teens, I would scale up your area appropriately. We don't get a ton of teens, partly because getting the word out in the summer to teens is an ongoing challenge for us. So we might get, I don't know, we might have 2 color wars at different times and we get like 10 kids each, perhaps. if I was going to incorporate this into a larger event, because our teens will show up in the summer for a Friday night giant party,
Cool.
I would like do half our parking lot or something
Mm.
like that instead of just on the lawn. But yeah, if you're worried about being surprised by the number of teens, then you can try to get them to register.
Right.
But that doesn't always work here either. So I just fly by the seat of my pants.
Right. And so what I'm hearing is depending on the size of your library and your typical response, you want to have that registration, go for it, have a better idea of what type of space you would need.
Yeah, and again, this is why I say the color powder lasts quite well for many months if you have it in an airtight container.
Very
So if
nice.
you have stuff left over, you can just use it again.
Perfect.
But don't let the kids go back inside the library, or you'll be cleaning up for days.
I'm sure that would be a nightmare. All right. So we have about a couple more minutes. So if you're available to answer some more questions, awesome. So let's see, where am I up to? How do you did you schedule a rain date?
Yeah, that's always my fear when I do outdoor events.
Right.
For this kind of, when I'm doing a fairly small one, then I'll say, we'll do a rain date this time next week.
Right.
If it's a massive, well, not massive, but an after hours thing, then I maybe won't do a rain date, because doing an after hours program requires some planning and negotiating with staff, working the extra hours. And so I may not schedule a rain date because it's a hassle to
Gotcha.
rework scheduling. But whatever works in your area.
Right.
We do have a viaduct, like a railroad overpass, and one of our branches has a pavilion. So I suppose you could, if you have to, go under something and still have a color war.
Nice. And I
Be
remember you
like
said too.
hand-to-hand combat, color
Yeah.
war.
That would be interesting. And I remember you said too that the powder does last for a long time. So I suppose if there wasn't a rain date, it could be used at a later date in general.
Yeah, as long as you can store it where it won't get damp. So if you're very humid, if you have a humid closet or something, it won't last. It'll clump up, but
Gotcha. Okay.
really it's just
That's a good tip. Yeah, for sure. So we'll answer one last quick question. How much powder do you usually go through?
So I've been fine with the 8 1-pound plastic packages, which at least at the moment is like $48 on Amazon.
Okay.
And again, that was just for 2 groups of about 10 teens, and they go through it like really quickly.
Gotcha.
Like 15 minutes, it's done. I would buy in bulk, like the 3-pound bags, if I was expecting more, or I would make more formal structured games out of it to make the powder last longer, if I had more teens coming.
Very nice. All right. So that's all the time that we have with you. Thank you so much, Doris. Is it Doris Jean or Doris?
It's Doris Jean, yes.
Doris Jean. Thank you so much, Doris Jean. This
You're
was
welcome.
lovely to hear about. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joni. I'm
Awesome.
Beth Rienti. I'm with the Mohawk Valley Library System, and I just wanted to take a moment on behalf of myself and all my colleagues to thank you so much for joining us today for our collaborative teen SRP planning workshop. We really do appreciate your time and participation. I want to especially thank the presenters for inspiring us with their creativity and sharing their knowledge with all of us. Remember, you can take these program concepts and craft them to work for your library and your teens. We are confident that your summer reading program will be a masterpiece. Your system coordinator will be sharing an evaluation link with you shortly. Please take a moment to fill it out. We take your feedback seriously and use it to inform our future planning. Your coordinator will also share the video of this workshop when it's ready and a CE certificate. If you have any questions, you can check with your systems person. Once again, thank you so much for being with us today and have a wonderful rest of your day.